Council meeting. Thank you, Christopher. As we normally do, I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance together. We have an invocation by Josh Cortez. Is he here? Josh, right here, Westfield Friends Church. Great to have you with us. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sir.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here, honored to lead this portion. So if you would just bow your heads with me, and we'll open up in a short prayer. God of peace, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have different opinions, give us the spirit of unity. Help us each to listen politely as others share their points of view. Help us to work as a unified team in combining ideas for a great outcome. Help us to work as a whole rather than as individuals trying to promote our own agendas. May we have a spirit of community in this room and work together on our shared mission. We thank you for all these things and tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. Mr. Johns, would you conduct the meeting, please, sir?
Thank you, Mayor Cook. All right. Cindy Gossard, could you please note the presence of a quorum?
Roy Patton,
Here.
Pat Fry,
Here.
Mike John,
Here.
Cindy Spalcherik,
Here.
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Jake Gilbert,
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Cindy. The first thing on the agenda is to announce any changes to the agenda, and I've got 3 or 4 here. The first one, there's a lease agreement tonight for the historic cabin. There's no adoption consideration is needed for April 26, because the city council does not own the property or the city. And so the council will need to provide guidance on certain terms, but we will not be looking for an adoption consideration on April 26th. Second item, change on the agenda, the West Fork Whiskey Confirmatory Resolution and Hearing. We're going to announce the addition of a public hearing that had been previously advertised. So there will be a public hearing this evening for that resolution. Also under new business, Ordinance 221-26, which is the additional appropriation of the historic cabin. That will be up for adoption consideration on April 26th. And another one, Ordinance 21-25, North Point PUD Amendment 5, which had been on the agenda, has been removed by the petitioner late afternoon. So those are the changes to the agenda. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Do we have any additions or changes to the minutes for, what is it, March 22nd, 21? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Scott Willis moved to approve it. Can I have a second?
Second.
Joe Edwards seconded. All right, the motions has been made and seconded, so let's do it by voice acclamation. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is the claims. The first item there is a review of the interpleader agreement. Okay, this is not really a claim that requires formal council approval, but we've had a lot of questions about it because it's a charge for $938,000, and so Jeremy Lawler is going to explain to us what it's all about. Jeremy?
Yeah, sure. I guess to start, I distributed a detailed summary of the events on Friday, so I guess I would open that up for questions, if there were any questions associated with that document. Nope. Okay. A summary, the city was listed as a third-party defendant in a lawsuit between a developer and his contractors. The city had a development agreement or a road impact fee agreement with the developer for 175th Street, construction of 175th, which is required by the 32 overlay. So thus, that improvement is creditable. Effectively, in order to pacify our agreement and remove the city from this lawsuit, we made a motion of interpleader to the funds that we owed or owe for the construction of that road, which sum totals $938,322.40. There are some incomplete items that have also been deducted from the original amount, so we've retained those dollars so that once this, once this is finalized, assuming docket gets approval, then we can move forward as a city utilizing those road impact fee dollars to finish out the improvements that are outstanding.
Questions from council?
So Jeremy, we're going to recollect these funds then over time?
Yes, absolutely. The development will generate enough road impact fees to cover that cost.
Okay. And then, so why is it, we're a third party because of the road impact fees solely? Is that the only reason?
Yeah, that's correct, because we were holding dollars, specifically because the infrastructure wasn't complete. The agreement states that we don't release the dollars until it's approved and accepted and turned over to the city.
Is it just paid off over time until that amount is relinquished or depleted, the entire amount?
So when we pay this $938,000, we've fulfilled our commitment to the road impact fee agreement, and that is gone. Anything else in that area will just generate cash back to the city.
And is that normal for us, to pay that amount? Sorry, I didn't, if someone says. Is that normal for the city to, in cases like this?
Absolutely.
If the attorneys for the two parties can't work out that between themselves,
I can say that we haven't been in this situation before, but yeah, it's typical that we would enter into an impact fee agreement. That's the purpose of impact fees, is to offset the cost of development. So the traffic they generate, they pay for. Agreements are structured in different ways, but 32 overlay.
Sorry. Do we
Go
get charged interest on this or no?
No.
Or is-
No, we'll be paid in full at this point in time.
Okay. Who are the attorneys for the two different parties?
I'm not familiar with who's on the other side, but for us, it was Taft assigned this to Alice Morkel from Hoover.
Yeah, I can jump in, Councilman. So there were 4 or 5 parties. Coots Hankey, I believe, represented one of the contractors. Taft represented Garmong, which is another contractor, which is why we assigned it to Ms. Morkel.
Must be that asteroid.
So to take that back a little further, when we were named in this lawsuit, it was prior to Taft being on board with the city. I think
Yeah, this
that's
is
worth
pending,
noting.
what, a year and a half about?
Yeah,
So-
in total, and then really it ramped up in late 19, and Brian Zeger was our attorney at the time.
And the general issue is, without, the city was named as a defendant in name only. And so what happened is the city has to participate in the lawsuit, and Mr. Zager had to sit in depositions, and the city had to pay for that, when in reality, all that was needed is for the city to get out of the way and say to the court, hey, there's this set of monies that can be recoverable. We don't want to hold that and owe interest, to your point. And in addition to that, and Jeremy can explain this better because I was involved day to day, there were liens filed against city property that this motion helped resolve. So I commend Alice and him for kind of working that out. But the big issue is it relieved us of those lien rights that those parties were going to assert. It stopped the bleeding on any fees. And it finally resolved this, year and a half long lawsuit that we shouldn't have been in the first place. and there was a cap, right? So we were not obligated for anything more than what was contractually required, except with some set-off for the remaining amounts that were owed.
So there's multiple contractors.
Yeah, 4 or 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because there was individual RIF agreements and then assignments of those agreements that were approved by the Board of Public Works.
Okay, and I mean.
Oh, it's complicated. No, this is in mortgage payment pleader, you usually see it in multi-million-dollar cases where banks are holding money in trust, and they say, we don't want to deal with it, we want to deposit it in the court. So for a city to be involved in it is a little bit unusual.
Okay. So, I mean, what you said one thing, and this may not matter, but how is Taft representing one of the contractors and representing the city against each other?
So the contractor was not suing the city, number one, but just to be safe, it was assigned to Ms. Morikawa, and she's representing the city. I'm just aware of it generally from public filings.
But Taft is on both sides in
No.
some
No, sir.
regards?
Nope. Taft represents Garmong. Garmong has not asserted a claim against the city. Garmong is in the lawsuit. And Taft does not represent the city in this lawsuit. Ms. Morikawa does.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And this is Alice.
Yeah,
This is
Allison.
Alice Moracle. I'm on if anyone else has questions too.
I've got just one question.
Sure.
So we're basically pretty much made 100% whole on this.
That's absolutely correct.
With the exception, what about our legal costs? Are those picked up, or is that just, we assume those?
We did not include legal costs in this, so we will likely have to pay those.
That's-
We have not been invoiced at this time, so I don't know what those fees will be.
But that will fall back on us then,
Correct.
right? But in the bigger picture, nominal cost.
I would believe so, yeah.
Questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
If we don't do this, Jeremy, what are the opportunity costs, consequences? I mean, so we heard all the benefits.
So, well, it's a court order, so we're at the point where we need to issue funds. If we remain in the lawsuit, obviously, we're going to incur additional fees associated with that, and at the end of the day, we still owe this money either way. The 175th Street is complete, with exception of $125,000 worth of finishings that we will get the ball rolling on right away, and we retain those dollars to do that work.
And Alice, this is Mandy. Can you speak about the lien rights? Because like I said, I only have from what's been filed, but that's another potential issue if this doesn't get resolved.
Sure. There were mechanics liens filed by the subs that included in their description the 175th Street because of the timing of when the liens were filed and when 175th Street was turned over. Two of the parties raised this issue with us directly, and so it was something that we wanted to make sure got dealt with, and we were able to deal with it by agreement and now court order.
You, Jake? Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the claims then. The claims docket for April 12th, 2021. Does anyone on the council have any questions regarding the claims docket? Hearing no questions, I'll call for a motion to approve the claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the docket for April 12th, 2021.
Motion has been made by Scott Willis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Cindy Spoljarek, seconded. Okay, motion made by Scott Willis, second by Cindy Spoljarek. Can I have entertain a motion then to approve the claims docket? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Claims docket for April 12th is approved. There are, at this point, we have no miscellaneous business or special recognitions scheduled for this evening. We'll move on to old business. First item on old business is ordinance 20-23, the Bridgewater PUD Amendment Culvers. It had a council introduction back on June 8th of 2020, APC public hearing on July 6th of 2020, APC recommendation April 5th, 2021, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening. Is Matt Scum going to speak to the PUD?
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. Here this evening on behalf of KRG Bridgewater Kite Realty Group. With me this evening is Mark Jenkins towards the back of the room, and also we have another team member, Tony Halsey, on the team's meeting as well. We are here this evening for a site-specific PUD amendment to the Bridgewater Marketplace for a new Culver's restaurant. As President Johns highlighted, we were last before the council in June of 2020, and of course, there's been several changes we've all observed together over the last year, and we've learned a few things which have really informed the revised concept plan that's attached to the PUD. The changes that have been made along the way that I'll highlight are the concept plan that you're seeing right now includes some acreage to the north of our site. North is to the right on this diagram. And part of our agreement with Bridgewater Club is to build a pavilion, which is shown actually at the top of this page. We are building a pavilion and landscaping a park to be known as Weber Park, immediately north of our site. And we have incorporated an outdoor seating area onto the east side of our building, being highlighted there. And then the pickup area has been reconfigured to accommodate, really to avoid some of the vehicular challenges that this whole COVID experience has revealed with these types of restaurants. And so this should alleviate internal congestion within the development. In addition, the building elevations for the Culver's building have been substantially enhanced. I'll just generally say there's a lot of masonry on this building, a lot more than we originally started with. And there are light fixtures that are the gooseneck fixtures that have been incorporated into the architecture of the property that carry that Bridgewater theme through the site. The Bridgewater Club, as I mentioned, has reviewed these plans and is supportive of the plans. This item comes before you with a unanimous favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but would respectfully request your approval tonight.
Counselor?
I'll just make a comment because it's in my district. I really like the aesthetics that you guys have come up with for the elevations. It fits in really well. And I really appreciate you guys upping the game in that regard. So just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a process.
Any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion then to approve ordinance 20-23 Bridgewater PUD amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. The ordinance has been, motion's been made by Scott Willis, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy, Gosser, can you please call the roll?
Scott Will,
Yes. Sorry. I didn't-
Scott Will, okay. Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thanks, Matt. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. The next ordinance, 21-04, Lantern Commons PUD. It had a council introduction on January 11th of this year, APC public hearing February 1st, APC recommendation last week, April 5th, and it is up for adoption consideration this evening. And Matt Skelton is going to present this PUD also.
Good evening, members of the council. Matt Skelton with Church Churchill and Antrim with offices at 116 North Union Street here in town. Just real quickly, here on behalf of Front Street Partners this evening, Martin Ing and John Elliott are here with me. And I believe Gary Perrell with ALO Property Group is on the team's call. We were last before you not too long ago in January, and I think everybody has kind of stayed tuned into this one a little bit along the way, and so I won't go into a whole lot of detail restating what we covered in January, and I know you have a long agenda. But I'll highlight some of the important changes that have happened that resulted in the unanimous favorable recommendation we received last week. So we were last before the city in January. We have been working since then with the Plan Commission and our neighbors to refine the ordinance. We have incorporated several additional restrictions within the PUD and a number of exhibits that help memorialize those restrictions. And so I'll just quickly highlight these, and then if people have detailed questions, we can go as deep as you want to go. But one of the important changes has been initially the PUD, as it was written, had a fair amount of flexibility in the size of the various sub-pieces of Lantern Commons, and that has essentially been removed, where we have agreed to build in substantial compliance with what you see here. And if any substantial change were to be necessary or of benefit to the city, then we would have to readdress it through this process. The permitted uses that were permitted throughout the various sub-areas have been substantially reduced. I would say just at a high level, probably about half of the originally contemplated uses have been eliminated. There have been a variety of additional setbacks and building height restrictions and transition requirements baked into the PUD now, and they're all represented in the exhibits that are contained in the PUD. But just to highlight a couple, and probably the most noteworthy, north is to the left on this exhibit, and to the left or to the north of this site is the Woodside Drive neighborhood, and the folks that abut our property have really been good to work with, and they had some requests when we had met with them, and we were able to accommodate those requests. They included the incorporation of a 5-foot mound along the property line that will be planted with a variety of tree species, but they will include evergreen trees. Today, that property line, there's a lot of trees there, but many of them there near the property line are not in the greatest of shape, and I think that's been noted by some of the neighbors in their emails that we've all received. And we've also agreed at the request of the neighbors to incorporate a fence along the Westfield Boulevard extension along that north property line that would discourage people that are walkers from meandering off of the street right away, and I think there was just some, not fear, but apprehension about having people walking around in backyards and things. So we have incorporated that. That's all part of the ordinance. And then we have also incorporated some restrictions on how close the apartment buildings that are shown can be to the property line. So at a minimum, the closest building would be 200 feet. And that probably really doesn't tell the whole story, because the site, the way by locating multifamily buildings like we have, the site's able to be a little bit terraced. So some of these buildings will set down a little bit, so they actually won't look as tall as they are from the north. So that was one of the other benefits. But we've incorporated a variety of architectural exhibits. I won't go through each one of them unless anybody wants to go through them. But we have committed to build in substantial compliance with the architectural elevations that are included in the PUD ordinance. The all language regarding the parking structure that was originally in the ordinance has been eliminated. That doesn't look like a likelihood in Lantern Commons. The open space, there's an open space exhibit that shows where the open space is to be located and also how it is to be programmed. And that's been incorporated into the ordinance. And then there are a couple of other exhibits that have been incorporated into the ordinance, including site elements that is located here. And these are just thematic elements that are going to be incorporated into the proposal to provide a little bit of thematic continuity throughout Lantern Commons. And then there are some gateway options, which may require just a little bit of explanation. But the gateway options, there's actually three. There's option A, option B, and option C. And option C is what you've all seen before when we introduced Lantern Commons initially. And since then, we've been kind of tuned into your conversations, multiple conversations about 161st Street and the Monon Trail. And so we had our engineers and architects design a couple of solutions that are, they're plans. They're not, this by no means binds the city. It just shows what could be done. There's other conversations that would have to happen with your Public Works Department and with this council if any of those options are to be accomplished. But if you could show option A and option B. Option A shows a single pedestrian bridge over the Westfield Boulevard extension. It has a kind of a ramped approach from the south, and then crossing Westfield Boulevard, there's a spiral. You descend on a spiral ramp that takes you down to the base level. And again, these things have price tags with them that we would have to all agree on how these are going to be pulled off, but we know engineering-wise it can be done. It can be accomplished. So that's a conversation that we can have at another time. And then on the second, option B just shows the same thing, except there's also an opportunity for one over 161st Street at the roundabout, if that's a city priority. So with that, I think the only things that I would add at the Plan Commission meeting last week, there were a few items that we were asked to change as conditions of the approval, and those have all been made, and I'll just quickly touch on them. We eliminated, and I think these were in some of the neighbor requests that were received as well, but we eliminated hospitals and a heliport from the permitted use list. Same with tavern and nightclub. In the retail area, there was a request for a reduction in open space, which has been eliminated. It's not necessary. We're going to comfortably exceed the open space requirement. As I mentioned, there's been architectural exhibits incorporated, and there have been elevations for the garage structures in Area E that have been incorporated into the PUD as well. And so I covered a lot at a high level. I could easily present on this for 30 more minutes, and I'm sure you don't want me to do that. But if you have questions, please ask. I'm happy to respond, and we would request your approval this evening. Thank you.
Council's questions?
I have one.
Mike, if I could,
Go ahead, Cindy.
I'm sorry. It's always a delay when I'm on the phone, so I don't know if I'm coming in at the right time. I first want to thank the petitioners. They've been really good to work with on this very complicated project. There's a lot of transitional use that needed to happen. There's a lot of neighbors impacted. Trail corridors, US 31, obviously, 151st Street. So multiple complicating factors here. And I think that we've come to some pretty good compromises in terms of what is going to be actually really beneficial for this area, and I think hopefully an asset to the community and the neighbors. So I want to, again, thank the petitioner. He did incorporate the images, so they weren't in the APC approval for the garages or the assisted living facility or the hotel. And those have now been incorporated. So again, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. And for the other changes you have made to accommodate the concerns. And the one thing I was going to add, you didn't really talk about what would happen if NDOT did give up, vacate that additional portion next to 31, but the apartments would be expanded there. And just in case anyone was confused about what could happen there, I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
I have one quick question if I can. I just want to be sure, I know there was some discussion around this, and as everyone's pointed out, there have been, modifications and that type of thing. I believe I'm seeing it correctly with the representation there on the screen. I just want to be certain that as far as Woodside Drive and the residents there, that is, as far as the roadway is concerned, untouched, and there's no plan to change that moving forward.
Sorry about that. The drive itself?
Yes.
Yes, that is outside the scope of this project, and I think the city has indicated along the line, I don't want to put words in the city engineer's mouth. He may be on the line, but I don't think there's any intention to connect that.
Okay, so that's a cul-de-sac today, and it's going to continue to stay that way.
That's up to you guys, but yes, that's, I believe that's to be the
As
case.
far as the final plan that we've decided on here, there's no need to change that.
That is correct.
Perfect, thank you.
I grew up there, went to high school, living there. It was my grandmother's property. I had hoped for something better. I know every hill and dale there, and I don't like this, but it's progress, and I probably don't have any choice. But I had sure hoped for something better. We ran away Andy Moore because it is exposure to 31. We wanted something good along 31. Is this the replacement? I don't know. I question it, but I'm emotionally attached to this property. And that's why I'm going to vote no. Just so you don't have any misunderstandings about it.
This is in my district. I kind of want to echo some of the things that Cindy said. I do want to thank the petitioners. I think you guys were as patient as could be to get us to this point, and Matt as well. And there were a lot of meetings. This has gone on for a long time. I think the first time we talked about it was way early last fall or last summer. So like Cindy and a lot of people have just worked really hard on this. I just appreciate the APC and all their work, but I want to point out specifically the people on Woodside Drive. So, there were 72 pages of comments on this, and that's helpful to us. And so I just want to say the people on Woodside Drive who got involved, got engaged. I went over there and knocked on doors and just talked to people. I just felt like the people were very realistic. I think most of them maybe share Joe's sentiments in a lot of ways, but at the same time, try to balance what's the best thing they can get at this point for future development and so forth and so on. And what will impact them the least in a positive way, and obviously comparing this to what it's zoned for, so forth and so on. But the people were great, and they participated, and I would just encourage other people to model their actions. So I'd like to thank all those people that live on that road right there. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
One quick quirk, Mr. Johns, if I may. Earlier today, section 10 was added to the ordinance itself.
That's correct.
I just wanted to point it out. And based on comments I provided the council earlier, I don't want to put a spotlight on it per se, but the three options are to remove that section, add a severability clause, which Mr. Skelton knows what that would entail, or table it to get it figured out. Otherwise, and again, I don't want to put a further spotlight on it and get into the details of what it may do or cause, but I do wanted to bring it to the council's attention.
Okay. Matt, would you like to address it?
Sure, that was a request from one of the council members, and I am happy to remove it. I don't think it's gonna matter. I mean, this is not something that my client was excited about, but it's gonna have no effect whatsoever, because we'll easily pull our first permit within 6 years. I mean, or there's bigger problems for our whole community. So I think this one could comfortably be removed and there wouldn't be a lot of risk, but we would prefer to stay on track, just because my clients have traveled a great distance to be here, and it's not like on the way to their home, so I appreciate it.
All right.
Can we explain option 2, the severability?
Sure,
clause?
yeah, so part of the issue, again, without putting too much of a spotlight on it, if a provision in a contract or an ordinance is problematic for some reason, ultimately, if there's some sort of legal action and there's a severability clause in that contract or ordinance, you can strike lines of a contract or ordinance, but everything else remains intact, if it ever became an issue. So that's one way to kind of, to move it forward without removing the entire section now. You can add that severability clause, and that has done those forever. And that gives me, frankly, comfort that it won't invalidate potentially the entire ordinance later on. It doesn't change the operative function of the ordinance whatsoever. It's a technical, legal analysis.
Yeah, we're neutral on that, however you guys want to deal with it. Just leave it in.
So we would leave that in, but if there was a legal issue with it, it can be struck later.
Correct, if
If it
you
became
vote for it
problematic.
with the severability clause condition.
We can vote for it as is, though, correct?
You can, and run the risk that something could come up later. That's completely your choice.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 21-04.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Troy Patton to approve, seconded by Cindy Spiljerik. Cindy Gasser, can you call the roll, please?
Joe Edwards,
No.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, folks. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 21-101, Fiscal Ordinance 21-13, Lakes of Westfield Phase 2. It is and that's going to be presented by Pam Howard. It's up for adoption consideration this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, your next two items are related to the Lakes of Westfield Phase 2 annexation of 22.4 acres located at the southwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook Road. The annexation ordinance was up for a public hearing on March 8th and is eligible for your adoption this evening. Table 5 of the fiscal plan does show the net impact of this annexation being a little over $14,000 in the positive. I am available for questions if you have any of the department. Thank you.
questions? Councilors? Okay, seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-101?
I move to approve Resolution 21-101.
Second.
Moved by Jake and seconded by Joe Edwards. Okay. Cindy, can you call the vote, please?
Mike Johns,
Yes?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on then to ordinance 21-13, Lakes of Westfield Annexation, Phase 2, which is part and parcel of the last resolution. Pam?
I have no additional comments on this. Thank you.
Okay. It's up for adoption consideration this evening. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Joe Edwards moved for adoption, and Scott Willis seconded the motion. Cindy, would you call the roll, please?
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. The last item of old business is ordinance 21-15, the Davis PUD amendment. This had a council introduction on March 8th of this year, was APC hearing on April 5th with a adoption consideration on April 12th. So, the APC recommendation also on April 5th, same night, and it's up for consideration this evening.
Before we get started on this particular ordinance, I need to recuse myself on a vote due to my wife's business and her relationship with Estridge Homes. So do I need to leave the room for this portion or just sit tight or?
No, you're fine as long as you don't comment or otherwise vote.
This has to do with the Serenade subdivision, right?
That's correct. For the record, I'm Brian Stump with
Brian.
Development representing Estridge Homes. This is an amendment to the PUD for one specific architectural requirement, and that is when there's brick on the front facade of the home.
Hey, Mike, they're going to have to up to Mike. I can't hear.
Yeah, sorry, I'll start again. My apologies. I'm Brian Stump with 11th Street Development, here representing Estridge Homes. This amendment is for a specific architectural requirement that occurs when there is masonry on the front elevation of the home. It requires a certain height of a brick wainscot around the sides and rear of the building. What this does is this amendment adjusts that height so that the strong horizontal line that's created by the front porches and is consistent all the way around the building is maintained through the design of the homes. Essentially, this amendment allows the Estridge to continue building the homes that they're building out there today. This went through the Planning Commission, received a unanimous favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Questions, comments? Can I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-15 Davis PUD amendment?
This is Scott Fry. I move that we approve ordinance 21-15.
Second.
Okay. Motion was made by Scott Fry and seconded by Jake. Cindy, would you call the vote, please?
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Scott's
Oh, I'm
recused.
sorry. Jake you're right. Gilbert.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 with 1 abstain.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Moving on into new business. Our first item under new business is Resolution 21-108, Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, initiating an investigation. Jake, would you like to address this?
We're just basically interested in, perhaps some mediation and getting to the bottom of, and some fact-finding between some of the entities here in the city. Obviously, we spend a ton of money in attorney fees and, kind of a black eye to the city when we're suing each other as elected officials. So as a council, we would like to do anything we can to help bridge solutions, and we will do everything possible to help get us there. So this is just a resolution that we would like to get engaged a little more formally as a council so that we can be of assistance to both sides moving forward, and just to make sure that the residents know that we are aware and we do want to work together and communicate better and do a better job going forward. That's it.
Any comments?
I just had one question. Mike, you and I talked about this, and I went back and read this this afternoon. I guess the only thing I'm not sure on, there's a comment around city records. Can somebody elaborate what that is exactly? Because I'm not aware of the city having records with the clerk treasurer. Is that the case, or?
Can we scroll down on that a little bit, on the resolution?
Mike,
Okay,
one of my attorneys are present if there's question.
okay, all right. So really the purpose, and before I let Cindy answer that, really the purpose of this amendment or resolution too is really, as Jake said, we're aware that there's been some litigation going on between two of the arms of our city, between our administration and our clerk treasurer's office. We're concerned with that going on. We're concerned with the costs that have accrued because of that. And my plan is to ask our oversight committee of the council to look into that, to put together a list of how many dollars have been spent to date on that, and so we can disclose that to the public. And then also, once we go through and kind of analyze it and talk about how we got to where we are, it's my understanding that issue is going to get resolved very quickly within the courts, so we're not going to comment upon that right now. But we as a council and as the oversight committee, I'd like them to try to come up with some ideas that hopefully we can diffuse these things in the future, find out what went wrong this time around, and prevent needless waste of city funds if at all possible. So that is the purpose of it, and we try to write the resolution broad enough so that we could look at all aspects of the issue.
I think that answers my question.
Any other comments, questions?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Johns, and the council, is that we can't talk about the case because it's pending, as you mentioned, and but I will say that a joint motion has been filed last Friday to work toward a resolution. I commend the clerk's lawyer who's here and the clerk for working everybody together to move that forward. So if that's part of the purpose, that there's not a whole lot to do. And second, my only concern is that you're going to be asking questions potentially that are of lawyers that are privileged between their clients. So I'm a little unclear about how that's going to unfold. But if you have any other questions broadly about the cost, I'm certainly happy to meet with somebody in my office, go through the costs broadly, and answer any questions. I'm sure Mr. Thompson is here, we'll do the same.
And we definitely, I think I can say, represent everyone here and say that we certainly appreciate those insights that you can give to us. And we will also respect your guidance as far as when you tell us that we're going too far and we're probing too deeply. We do want to try to keep it to the financial aspects.
Very good.
So, that being the case, can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I move to approve Resolution 21-108.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Jake Gilbert, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Cindy Spalgeri. Yes. Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Cindy. The next item on new business is Resolution 21-109, which is the Common Council of City of Westfield, Indiana, establishing an audit committee. And Troy, I'm going to let you address this.
Okay, thank you. So Resolution 21-109, we will be establishing an audit committee to oversee the audit that we've been talking about for some time. It will be conducted on an annual basis. I've been in pretty consistent contact with the state of Indiana in regards to how to establish this. We are late for 2020, but it's very possible, if not probable, that we will get an exception to that and be able to conduct our audit for 2020 as well. The audit to a limitation is established by the State Board of Accounts. However, we can at any time increase that audit to oversee or to audit other factors within the city or things that we feel that are necessary. And really, that's pretty much it. I know there's been some discussion as to internal code or IC 511-1-24.4. I spoke with the state today, and we were informed that we can move forward with the resolution and this internal audit committee. And when I say internal audit committee, it's called by the state to be internal control department. For those CPAs out there, we think of it as an internal audit. It doesn't have to be enacted by the executive branch of the city. That's per the state of Indiana, talking with them today. And obviously, this resolution impacts 2020 as well as 2021. And then, so going forward, instead of the State Board of Accounts performing the audit, we will put together a committee that will select an independent auditor to do that. So that's really what 21-109 is.
Mr. Chairman, I think the audit, or not the audit committee, the finance committee kind of brought this idea up, and there are two steps to this. The first step is 2020. The city has not been audited for 2020 yet, and we can ask the State Board of Accounts to use, I believe their subcontractor is Crow Chiswick, to audit 2020 without, and they will adopt that position. And it might be better anyhow for a CPA firm to do that.
Right.
And Crow Chiswick is a good firm. And that would take care of 2020. 2021 is where this audit committee has to fall into place. And we're a bit behind in asking for permission to audit 2021. Permission must be given by the State Board of Accounts 180 days prior to entering 2021. So January 1st, we were 180 days late, but I have talked to, I can't think of the lady's name, Susan is her first name.
Yeah.
But
Susan and Todd.
I want to say Susan Brooks, but I don't think that's
No.
it. Anyhow, Susan is her first name. And
Susan Gordon.
Susan Gordon, okay. they may waive that requirement for us.
For 2020.
2021.
And 2020,
And
actually.
20, yeah, right,
Yeah.
2020 also.
And just so everybody's clear, Crow Chiswick is actually probably they're towards the end of what they can possibly handle, although they've been able to take more. So from my understanding is that if it's not Crow, there is a possibility that we can actually use another firm.
Okay.
Even for 2020.
But there's kind of
So-
two steps to it, and the first step is this intermediary step, where another firm steps into their shoes, but they do it under the guidance of the State Board of Accounts. The reporting to the council and to the administration is the same. In fact, it's the same in both cases. And so if this ordinance or resolution passes, I'm going to ask our council attorney to request of Susan Gordon this stay of the 180 days, so that we may begin our audit process with 2021 in a proper manner. So that's, now, once we have entered that portal, there's no turning back. It's like a ratchet wrench. Once it's forward, you can't say, well, we just don't want to do this anymore. But many of the progressive communities in this county and in the state of Indiana are doing this, and they point out deficiencies and strengths that we may have in our financial position. So I think it's a good thing, and it will be done probably on a more timely basis than what is happening now.
Yeah, it's definitely more real time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would speak to the positive on Resolution 21-109.
So I do have a couple questions. One, Mr. Edwards, did I understand you to say that you pre-selected a firm? If
Well,
there's an
that's-
exception waived? There's a bidding process, there's an approval process, there's a whole
Right,
thing.
but I'm talking about the 2020 audit. The State Board of Accounts will select, that's just a one-year deal.
They would assign Crow Chiswick
They would assign somebody.
if they have the capacity.
Okay, I was
to do
worried
it.
if the city was gonna do that. Number two, I appreciate Mr. Patton raising this section. It specifically says, 524-4A2 specifically says that an independent control officer and an independent control board has to be established by the city legislative body. So I'm interested to see who you talked to. Was it a lawyer at the State Board of Accounts?
I spoke to Todd Caldwell.
Todd's not a lawyer.
Spoke to Todd Caldwell.
Okay. Well, I can call Todd tomorrow. He's not a lawyer. So, and to establish a board or a department, that would have to be upon recommendation of the mayor. I'm not going to speak for him. I'm sure he's fine with the general audit, the way this is proceeding, but we have to do it right.
Well, it'll have to be
And
done by
passing
state
this
law.
without- Excuse me, sir. Passing this without having established an independent control officer and a board is essentially like passing a blank piece of paper. So I don't want this little hiccup to result in a potential issue where we're entering into contracts that we shouldn't be and all these other matters.
I appreciate your concern, Manny, but from my understanding, speaking with Todd today, he spoke with the people, with the legal department, and nowhere in here says that the executive branch actually appoints the internal control department. In fact, is what we can do as a legislative body is we can appoint even the clerk treasurer's office somewhere in there to be that internal control department.
Can I be an employee?
No, don't interrupt me because I'm not done talking. And you can speak here in a second.
Thank you, sir.
So that internal control department can be within the city, and it can be appointed through whether it be the clerk treasurer's office or an individual as an internal auditor. So that does not negate this resolution. In fact, if by some means that you are correct, this resolution would still survive, and at that point, the mayor, if we are completely wrong, he can appoint someone at his every whim. But as it says right here, there is nowhere in here that it says the executive branch appoints that.
Mr. Johns, may I have a word, please?
May I respond first, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Mayor Cook. Yes.
So, and thank you for that. It's part of the issue with lawyers, non-lawyers trying to read into this stuff. So let me try to explain it. This section, 511-124-4, I believe it's A2, says that the city legislative body has to appoint an independent control officer and the board. They have to know where to look. 36494 is the statute that deals with city legislative powers for a third-class city, which Westfield is, and that requires that upon the recommendation of the mayor, only then can the city legislative body, you folks, act to appoint a board. Without those in tandem, this is like passing a blank piece of paper. Everybody's fine with it.
Yep.
I'm fine with it. It's just a matter of doing it right.
Manny, I appreciate that.
May I have I
I've
asked for the floor next, Mr. Johns?
Yeah, yes, please.
Did I not?
Yes,
Thank
you
you. Look, this arguing back and forth is, I think, embarrassing at best. This administration fully supports whatever kind of audit we need to do. I'm fully behind it. Have been since you all came on board and we first talked about it well over a year ago. But as the city attorney for my office, we need to do it legally. And I would suggest that the legal experts talk amongst themselves and let's get it done. I'm fine with it.
If I may raise one more point, Andy, because I don't want to be argumentative, of course. But what I want to point out is what they told me today, even this afternoon when I spoke to them, once I saw your email, which I appreciate. I'm glad you're looking at this. They said that passing this resolution, we can still pass it, and this prior to the state accepting our wanting to audit the 2020, that is when the internal control department needs to be established. Prior to that point, they would not accept it until we have the internal control department established. So they said, Todd told me today, he said, I would go ahead with the resolution, and then if you can always appoint that internal control department, however that shakes out, prior to submitting it to the state of Indiana. And that is what I should suggest we do from their recommendation.
So, and I respect that, and I've known Mr. Caldwell a while, he's very good.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's not a lawyer. So the only issue I have, and it's a quirk, but again, we don't want to stumble out of the gate, is that for this section to apply, you first have to do that. And so this isn't going to be some big delay. If the mayor recommends that you establish these positions today, you can take this under advisement. We'll prepare the ordinances that are required to establish the board and the internal control officer, appoint the internal control officer, and that can be done by next meeting. It's just, I would hate, and again, this is my recommendation, and I'm being paid to recommend to the city what to do, and I disagree with Mr. Caldwell's assessment. I'm happy to call him and talk to him tomorrow.
Whatever you do, I want you to cooperate with the city council attorney in doing this.
I've been in touch with her all day today, sir.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really don't, I appreciate it's all out here in the open for the taxpayers to hear that it may not be the correct steps. Everyone, I think, here in the audience probably knows that at this point, right? Again, I don't see any harm in passing the resolution. If in fact we need to walk something back, then we can do that just as well as we can next time. And so why not go ahead and establish it today, pass the resolution as we've been advised, and then should something come about that, we have to walk something back for some reason, again, I think we can do that as well at the next meeting. I mean, we've already been through one meeting where we haven't seen the resolution on the board. Here we are at the next meeting, we have another issue. If we all want it, I don't see what the big harm is. I mean.
The big harm is that it's not legal. It's like passing a blank piece of paper. I'm just trying to get it all on the right footing. So it does proceed normally, it does proceed efficiently, it does proceed without any hiccups on the back end.
Okay.
If I might inject here just for a second. So what's the risk of voting now and then you coming back and saying legally this is not the right step?
Yeah.
Does it expose us to anything? We just have to start over? I mean, what's the risk here?
Yeah, and I'm saying that. I'm saying it's not proper to pass it without first taking those initial steps. So the issues are twofold. One, it could delay your process because you need to have this established first before you move forward with the resolution establishing the audit committee. Number two, any contract you end up entering into after the full process of selecting the CPA firm could be void if you haven't gone through with the process. And then you could realize that 2 years from now, for example, and any sort of audit that was done or any contract that you entered into would be potentially void.
So
It's
I
my
guess
job to look ahead on all these issues and try to get ahead of things.
So I guess my question is, let me try to clarify. So if we wait to the next meeting, time is short. And
Sure.
I think we all recognize,
Sure.
we all want this done and time is very short. If we wait 2 weeks, we just lost another 2 weeks that we really don't have to waste. If we move forward and vote on it, I'm assuming that within the next 2 weeks, we would determine whether or not that is the right step. And we could hit the reset button in 2 weeks, which if we delay the vote now, we're gonna have to do again anyways in 2 weeks because we're not gonna vote on anything. So I guess that's kind of the risk that I'm talking about. Wouldn't we know in 2 weeks whether or not that was a faulty step and we have to hit the reset button? Because we'll be at the same place if we wait anyways. Am
I
saying this-
appreciate that,
am I-
and my recommendation is, the step is faulty now. I mean, I know that now. So why do that when you don't have to?
If I may interject, one of the concerns that you brought up, Mr. Herzog, was that any contract would be entered into wouldn't be valid. I believe I understood Mr. Patton explain it clearly that there would not be a contract until the oversight, or until the proper appointees were in place.
Well, the issue is part of establishing and entering into a contract is the proper formation of the audit committee. If the audit committee was the cart and the establishment of these other steps, the internal control officer is the horse, then any action taken beyond that would not be appropriate.
I think the issue that we've got here, Manny, is we'd like to expedite the process. We understand that what we vote on tonight, if we vote to approve this tonight, it's probably not going to be legal until Mayor Cook appoints a committee, right? An internal controls department, if you will, an internal controls officer in that department.
If that's the
And,
case.
and if that is in fact the case, your interpretation, if that is the case, hopefully Mayor Cook will be able to do that within the next couple of weeks and come back at the next meeting and say, here's your internal controls officer, and the department's been identified, and we can move right forward. And we've already have not wasted any time, and we've got the resolution in place.
Yeah, and I respect that, Mr. Johns. The only issue is, again, it's, that process needs to happen first for this section to even be effective, for you to be able to do it. So, I mean, you can always call a special meeting.
And I'll tell you right now, I agree to set up this process.
I'd like to ask you, how quickly, if it turns out that you are the one that appointing?
Well, you know what?
How quickly can
I
we make
don't
that
know,
happen?
because we haven't, I would love to have talked to you all before this prior, but we don't do that. So I can't answer your question, Mr. Fry.
Do you,
I'm sorry. Was something,
is it something that you feel that would be a
there
priority?
was something funny over here.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask you a question?
You just did.
Okay, may I ask you one and get an answer? How soon do you think?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Is it something that you would make a priority that certainly within 4 to 6 weeks?
I'll make it a priority.
Thank goodness we're not combative.
Thank goodness what?
I said, thank goodness we're not combative. We don't want that to be, this to be a
I just
combative
said, I'm more than
place.
happy to set it up. I don't know for sure what's
gosh.
even involved. We're
Hey,
glad
everybody
to
in the
do that.
audience, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Been wrong before. All the taxpayers, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if not, we're moving forward, and we can revisit it next time. I don't see what the big deal is. I got plenty of people on Facebook calling me a buffoon anyways. What's it matter if 10 more do it? You know? I mean, yeah, there you go.
Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I call for the question.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and called by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Fry. Can I have a vote, Cindy?
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we approved then the resolution by the Common Council to establish an audit committee. I hope in my heart, Mayor Cook, that you understand why we did it, that we really would like to move forward. And I will take you at your word that you will do your best, or that you want to also accomplish that. And I look forward to working with you to make that happen.
I totally agree with that. I agree to set up this outside audit. It's fine. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Cook. The next three items of new business, they all deal with the historic cabin project. And these, all three of these are pretty much up for an introduction only tonight. I'm going to let Manny, Manny,
Sure.
talk to us and address us on this? It really has to do with a project agreement and a funding agreement, a cabin lease agreement, and then there's an additional appropriation. But again, they're all up for just introduction tonight.
Sure. So this is with the cabin project that's going to be built up here next door. Right. And so the council had voted a couple meetings ago to approve providing $140,000 to help raise the cabin and some other issues. And the three documents here, including, in addition to that, the additional appropriation, are all needed to protect the city from liability and to memorialize the agreement. So first, the additional appropriation is necessary because these monies were not in the budget previously. And so you first need to appropriate those monies to be able to use them ultimately for this purpose. And then the way this is structured is you have a project agreement and you have a funding agreement. And both of those have requirements that, to the best of my ability, working with Ms. Spalgeric and in particular, and Jeremy, we were able to get information to round out what those requirements would be, to make sure that the expenses that were being approved and ultimately the money is being paid out were fully transparent and covered the proper expenses. And then ultimately, the easiest and most cost-effective way to move forward on this was through basically a 99-year lease, a ground lease. That would allow us to protect the city from liability, God forbid, if somebody gets hurt walking to it or at some events. And then it will require certain, as any other landlord-tenant relationship, certain processes must be met and certain assurances must be made, including insurance and maintenance and all the rest. And so for the council today, as you pointed out, we have these for consideration. And what I would encourage the council to do, I've only received comments from two of you, is to provide comments on the rest of it. And between now and the next meeting, whomever is working with the Historical Society can round out the documents fully. So at that time, they would be available and ready for approval. Except for the lease, because the parcel is not owned by the city, that would need to go through a separate procedure, but it is important for the city and for the council to provide input on that as well, since, essentially, you already decided the money's going there anyway. So beyond that, I'll take any questions.
Excuse, I get the information for the additional appropriation because I got it from DCF. That to be able to do that, to get it approved before we can send it.
I couldn't hear a word of that, sorry.
Cindy, you broke up. We can't hear you. Didn't hear that. Could you
Okay,
restate that?
I need a new computer. I have to use my phone and my computer. Yes. sorry, guys. I need the paperwork for the additional appropriation with the exact amount where you want it to come from, and where we're going to pay it from, so I can request that of DLGF, because I get approval from them before we can spend it. So I will need that information.
I think so. Okay, so you'll need that information at what point, Cindy? Can we wait and get that to you 2 weeks from tonight when we reconsider this?
Yeah, that's fine. It just takes a couple weeks from there to approve it or not. So it depends on how fast you want to move with this.
Well.
Mike?
Yes?
It's Cindy Spoljaric.
Yeah.
I know that we do need to move fairly quickly on this for the current cost they're having to pay out of pocket. And it's getting very tricky for them to move forward with anything. So the quicker we could get this done, the better. Also, I was wondering from Manny, the procedure that needs to happen with whoever, whatever entity owns that piece of ground, what process they have to go through, and could we be apprised of that?
I think those are two questions. Number one, move as quickly as possible. We know it's a priority, that's why we have it all put together. No money should leave the city coffers until these agreements are signed, period. And second, yes, the entity that owns would just need to pass a simple resolution, and of course, you can be apprised of that.
Manny, we just basically got these documents today, as far as the council goes.
Last Thursday and Friday, but sure.
Okay, so we really haven't had a chance to go through and review them, and that's why we just wanted to look at them for consideration this evening, or
Absolutely.
for introduction, rather. Do you feel that if we would be prepared to move quickly 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, and what you could do, and what other municipalities have done, is if you approve the form of these agreements, you can select 1 or 2 council members to work with council, it's Ann and me, to finalize those agreements in accordance with the council's vote. So that way, by the time of the next meeting, it should all be worked out with the society and signed. That's one option to expedite it.
I think that'd be a great option.
Sure.
Great option. Do we need to do that
Do we
formally
just need to do the
now,
vote?
or
Yeah.
can we just?
No, I would do a vote.
Okay, all right.
And instruct whomever you designate to work with legal counsel to effectuate the terms of these agreements with the society.
Okay. I'm going to ask Cindy Spoljaric to participate in that committee of 2, if you will. And
Sure.
Joe, maybe Joe, do you have time? And Joe Edwards. So those will be our two council participants.
Great.
Do we need to take a vote on that, or?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, let's make, okay, I guess the motion is that Cindy Spoljaric and Joe Edwards will work in tandem with Manny Herzog and Ann Poindexter to work through the cabin issue and draft whatever agreements are necessary and reach a consensus prior to next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Can I have to vote on, second?
I'll second.
Cindy, Coster, do you want to call the vote?
Who made the motions and seconded on that?
Okay, I made the motion, and it was seconded by Joe Edwards. Scott Willis.
Okay. Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljaric,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
At this point then, I think what we've just done is lumped all three of those items together in the cabin, and we should be good on that. We're gonna move on to the next item.
And that's perfectly fine. I do recommend, though, just for clarity of the record, to formally introduce the appropriation ordinance,
Okay.
just so that's clear, because it is an ordinance and should have, the record should reflect a first
Okay,
reading.
thanks, Manny.
Sure.
Okay, then I'd like to introduce ordinance 21-26, the additional appropriation for the historic cabin. We had the council introduction tonight, and it will be formally addressed 2 weeks from now. Moving on, the next
Yes.
item,
Cindy Gossard, do you have what you need to make the request to DLGF?
No, I don't have anything at this point.
So, again, could you just tell us what you need from us, please?
Well, is this the ordinance that's on the screen? Is that the one for the cabin?
yes.
Yes, that was just introduced.
Okay, I need that and I need the agreement. And then I will send in the request to DLGF for the $140,000 additional appropriation.
All right, then you should have it then, right?
Well, yeah, once it's signed, because I have to send in a copy of that too, so.
All right, well, all right, we're not signing it for 2 weeks, Cindy, so we'll have to
Oh,
do our best to expedite it.
okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
all
thank
right.
you. The next item of new business is Resolution 21-111, a confirmatory resolution of the Common Council of the City of Westfield, Indiana, confirming the declaration of a certain area within the City of Westfield as an economic revitalization area. It's up for a public hearing tonight. But before that, Kai is going to explain to us what it's all about.
Yes, good evening, councilors. For the record, Kai Chuck, Economic Director. The area in question here is 13 acres approximately on 191st Street and Horton Road. This is the future home of West Fork Whiskey, the agritourism-based project consisting of about 30,000 square feet and about $10.5 million in total investment and 50 new jobs. David McIntyre, one of the founders of West Fork Whiskey, is attending online, and he and myself are available for questions.
This resolution is up for public hearing tonight.
Correct.
Correct. So
Public is,
do we have any call-ins at all, Kevin?
There's no cards. Let me check email.
Why don't we give it maybe 30 seconds or so, just to see if anyone calls in?
And no emails at this time.
Okay, hearing no calls, and we started the public hearing, I guess, at 8:24, and it's ended at 8:25. Any questions or comments for Kai from the council? All right, hearing none, I will move to call the question. Can I have a motion, please, to confirm Resolution 21-111?
So moved.
Moved by Scott Willis. Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spalteric,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Kai.
thank you.
Next item of new business is ordinance 21-06, Grand Park Village PUD, Amendment 4. The council introduction is tonight, and I'll have a public hearing at the APC on May 5th, followed by hopefully a recommendation on June 7th, and be back in front of us on June 14th. So do I have someone here to speak to Grand Park Village PUD?
Yes. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Phil Sunling, and I'm with the Hankey Development Group. Before you this evening is Ordinance 21-06, which is an amendment to the Grand Park Village PUD. This zoning request amends roughly 68 acres of property generally located east of Kinsey Avenue, south of 186th Street along the west end of our Grand Park Village property. This portion of ground was originally contemplated in the PUD as single-family attached and multifamily development property, which it will remain. Our plan with this amendment is threefold. One, we'd like to further define the development standards within this portion of ground. Two, allow for additional units. And three, include the allowance of a Cape Cod-style single-family detached product. Regarding the site plan, we are proposing essentially 3 different product types in this community, all of which are included as character exhibits in the PUD amendment. Just to give you a feel for how this ground will lay out, starting at the north end from our main entry along 186th Street, we are planning a mix of high-quality townhomes along with the Cape Cod single-family detached homes. We will transition to a lower density single-family attached product further as we progress south, which will be built overlooking 2 new ponds. We plan to provide heavily landscaped buffers along much of the south end of the property, which abuts the existing residential property to our south. Also, as many of you know, Steve Hankey is always very adamant about and protective of saving trees. And there is a small existing tree line along the eastern portion of the single-family attached product there to the south that we do plan to preserve much of. Otherwise, much of this ground is currently open farm ground. Our goal is to break ground as early as this summer in hopes of starting home construction toward the tail end of this year or early next latest. As always, I appreciate your time this evening and be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Councilors, questions, comments?
Phil, you said more units. How many more units and what's the total?
So we are requesting, let me verify, I don't want to speak out of turn, the numbers changed a little bit. 280 additional dwelling units mixed between all 3 different types of product. And that's within the 68 acres, the total 68 acres.
Why? I mean, I guess I know the answer, but, so you're requesting 288 additional for what it was already approved for?
Yes, this area was approved for, I believe it was around 70 or maybe, I don't know if Dane's there, if he has the exact number in front of him, but I think it was approved for 70 units on the 68 acres, which obviously wasn't accurate at the time of the original PUD. We are currently approved for a total within all of the Grand Park Village ground, I think 960 units, which we've used a number of those up with the Charlestown apartment project. We've got additional projects in the pipeline that we're planning that will take up more of those units. But yes, as part of this PUD amendment, this is an additional 280 units.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
In the past, when we've had folks building around Grand Park, we've asked them about setting these up so they're VRBO type properties or what's the other? Airbnb. That's what I was trying to think of. Is there going to be something in this ordinance that, to make sure that we don't have that situation with, I mean, I can see in these cottages where people would come in and it'd be transient renters, on the weekends or for 1 week.
Sure, no, it's a great question. I don't think there's anything in the current PUD that prohibits that type of use. I can have that conversation internally, and if we need to incorporate that, I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Thank you.
This is Cindy, if I might. I have actually been requesting that when the covenants are written for these projects that are close to Grand Park especially, that they prohibitively say that you can't have short-term rentals there, realizing that they can later, as a community, decide if that's appropriate for them. But just because of the nature of where this is and the effects of that, again, they're not building a rental community. This is actually supposed to be a residential community, not a rental community. So other projects have been willing to include that in their covenants. We don't do it in the PUD ordinance itself. And Phil, I gotta say, I'm not very excited about your site plan. We'll work on that probably at Planning Commission. I really don't like the fact that you have a maximum of 960 units and you're asking for these to be additional on top of that when you haven't even built out the rest of the project. So I'm not comfortable with that right now. So another conversation to have down the road. Thank you.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you, Cindy.
Any other comments, councilors? Well, I guess that's it then. Phil, thank you for your time tonight, and we look forward to seeing this at the APC on May 5th, and hearing more of the details with respect to the development.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
You're welcome. The next item, new business on tonight's agenda is Ordinance 21-18, North Point Annexation, Phase 3. It's up for council introduction tonight, followed by a public hearing. Pam?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Pam Howard, the Community Development Department. For you this evening for a public hearing, you do have a proposed voluntary annexation of one parcel, approximately 3 acres in size, located at 2429 East 202nd Street. This item, like I said, is up for a public hearing this evening, and adoption consideration would be next month along with the presentation of the fiscal plan. I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing at 8:34. Kevin, let me know if you can come.
We have no cards and no emails.
We will close the public hearing at 8:35. Councilors, questions, comments? Okay. Hearing none, ordinance 21-18, North Point Annexation Phase 3 will be up for adoption consideration on May 10th. Next item on the agenda, ordinance 21-199, Bella Crest Annexation. This is, again, is up for council introduction this evening, followed by a public hearing, and then adoption consideration on May 10th. Pam?
Yes, thank you again. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. For you this evening, we have a proposed voluntary annexation of 2 parcels that are approximately 20 acres in size to be part of the Bellcrest subdivision. This site is generally located at the northwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook Road. And again, this would be for a public hearing tonight with adoption along with the fiscal plan in May. Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing again at 8:36.
No cards, no emails.
Closing the public hearing at 8:37. Counselors, comments, questions? Hearing none, we will just wait for the adoption consideration on May 10th and move on to our next ordinance. Ordinance 21-20, Caramore Annexation. Again, ordinance is up for introduction this evening, followed by a public hearing, and then again up for adoption consideration on May 10th. Pam?
Yes, thank you again. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, this proposed voluntary annexation consists of one parcel, approximately 40 acres in size, to be part of the Caramore subdivision. This is generally located at the northwest corner of 199th Street and Horton Road. And again, this is eligible for public hearing tonight and will be up for your adoption in May, along with the fiscal plan. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for public hearing at 8:38.
No cards, no emails.
Public hearing is closed at 8:39, and we'll look to hear the adoption consideration of ordinance 2021 on May 10th. Moving on, our next item is ordinance 21-22, the Winterberg PUD. It's up for council introduction tonight. APC public hearing on May 5th, APC recommendation on June 7th, and adoption consideration on June 14th. Speaking to the PUD tonight. John, yours.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Dabashewitz. I'm a land use professional with the law firm of Nelson and Frankenberger, and we represent the petitioner, Platinum Properties Management Company. Paul Rio, Platinum Properties, was not able to be here tonight. However, present tonight is Ann Klock with Beezer Homes, the proposed home builder, and Jim Schinner, an attorney with our office. As indicated, the matter before you this evening is the introduction of the Winterberg Planned Unit Development District, which is a rezone request to permit the development of a single-family residential neighborhood. The real estate's outlined in yellow on the aerial now on display. The site is generally located west of Casey Road, between 186th Street and 193rd Street. The real estate is approximately 154 acres in area. Council members, to your left, to orient you, this is 193rd Street. The dog leg here that takes you down to 191st Casey Road. Just south of the exhibit, it pulls over down to ditch here with the curve and the new alignment of the roadway, but 186th Casey Road, 193rd. To the north of the real estate is the Atwater community. That's the area shaded in green here that's been previously annexed and is under construction today. To the east are the Emery Trace and Lancaster communities. Emery Trace located here, Lancaster located here, both under development and with homes under construction and occupied today. To the south are the William Trace and Waters Edge communities. Again, 186th Street, the William Trace community, Waters Edge to the south of that. Both those communities are nearing completion of home construction within those two subdivisions. And to the west are single-family lots and agricultural uses. Our property line here shared, and the west is ag uses, as well as a few single-family detached lots. The current zoning of the real estate is AGS F1, and Platinum is seeking to rezone the real estate to the Winterberg Plan Unit Development District. The PUD will have SF3 single-family and SF4 single-family as the underlying zoning classification as a transition with lower intensity as you would move from east to west away from Casey Road. Can you advance to the next slide, please. This next exhibit is an excerpt of the Westfield Comprehensive Land Use Plan overlaid with various surrounding developments. Again, Atwater and Osborne Trails are to our north. The site is outlined here in black. Atwater, Osborne Trails, which is a matter that's on your agenda later this evening in addition to Osborne Trails. The Spring Mill Trails is to our south. Lancaster to the east, Lancaster located here, those other subdivisions I announced earlier under the Spring Mill Trails PUD, and then undeveloped areas to our west. Those undeveloped areas include the ag ground as well as the larger lot single family to the west. Other developments like the subject real estate are all designated under the comprehensive plan as new suburban on Westfield's comprehensive plan, where the proposed type and style of development, a mix of residential uses and lot sizes, is contemplated under the terms of the comp plan. The area designated as rural northwest is shown in tan and is approximately a quarter to a half mile to the west of and removed from the real estate. So all this area is kind of a sweeping arc here of anticipated growth and development. The comprehensive plan was adopted in 2007. We're 14 years into that plan, and you've seen developments approved and developed over time under that existing comprehensive plan, and this area falls in line with adjacent existing development, and within that area that's anticipated for residential development in the future. If you could advance to the next slide, please. We put this next exhibit together to assist in illustrating the surrounding neighborhoods, which I just spoke about, to show what is under development in the area. Emery Trace, again, Lancaster, Lancaster 2, which the council reviewed earlier this year. You can see Atwater to the north and Emery Trace as well as Lancaster to our east, and then the William Trace and Waters Edge again to the south. As one can see, the subject parcel is adjacent to existing neighborhoods and neighborhoods currently under development. You can display the next exhibit, please. This is an important exhibit to help explain the transition which would occur from east to west. As proposed, Winterberg will consist of two residential districts, Area A and Area B. Area A is generally closer to Casey Road with smaller lots, and Area B is located along the western and southern areas of the real estate as a transition in terms of lot and home sizes with larger lots in the west perimeter of the site. The exhibit on display illustrates the proposed two districts. Approximately 170 homes are planned within Area A, and 155 lots are proposed within Area B. If you can advance, please. This exhibit's a little difficult to see on the screen, but I know we've sent to everyone a copy of this via email, so you can look at that at your leisure. But the concept plan for the site's on display. Access to the neighborhood will be from primary entrances on Casey Road as well as 193rd Street with secondary connections via stub streets that are planned to the east and west to provide connectivity for potential future development. So all the time when a development is under consideration, you want to provide stub streets to undeveloped areas. Those are provided here and here, as well as a stub here and a stub up here to the north along 193rd Street. The neighborhood will include approximately 325 homes as shown. In addition, a trail network shown here in red, you can follow. That trail network comes up all the way through the site and transitions over to Casey Road here. That trail network will provide connectivity between the neighborhood and the Little Eagle Creek Trail to the south and the north, providing over a mile of additional trail connectivity. So if you're familiar with the city's alternative transportation plan, we've got the Monon north-south, the middle and east-west. And this additional trail segment, the Little Eagle Creek Trail, while it's not specifically defined to be right along the waterway, is an idea to connect those two trails to create a triangle-shaped area of interconnectivity over time and development where residents can take that circuit then in the future that will connect those three trail networks. If you would advance to the next slide, please. Character exhibits of the example home products are included in the PUD, and a few are shown here. As noted, Platinum is the developer, but Beazer Homes is the anticipated builder. Today, Beazer Homes builds similar home products in the West Rail community along 161st Street and Ditch Road. Beazer plans for this development to be a follow-up, for Winterberg to be a follow-up to the neighborhood at West Rail when it completes construction. Architectural standards for Winterberg are patterned off of the architectural requirements in West Rail as required under the terms of this ordinance, so I encourage you to review those in greater detail. All homes within the development will comply with high architectural standards above those required in the UDO today. The typical standards in the UDO today look specifically at those along the perimeter, what somebody might see as driving by the neighborhood. But this ordinance develops and employs architectural standards that would apply to all houses regardless of their location within the development. Both Area A and Area B will include a mix of ranches and two-story homes. Kevin, if you could advance to the next slide. Just shows you a couple of other the homes. On average, homes within Area A, the smaller of the two home products, would be in the $390,000 range, and the average sale price of $460,000 in Area B for an overall neighborhood, which is anticipated to have an average in the low 400,000s in terms of a price. If you could advance to the next slide. So regarding amenities, Winterberg boasts over 30% open space in the neighborhood, which would include a network of open space and trails structured to allow greater connectivity and walkability. The trail system will be open to the public and maintained by the HOA, connecting those developments south of 186 with those north of 193rd Street and east of 6 Points Road. The design, as shown here, also affords the greatest number of lots backing up to open space, adding value to the community. So you can see all these areas where there are lots. They've made significant effort that you would see all the rears of those lots bound by open space area that's attractive to the buyer as well as adds value to the homes within the community. In addition to the passive amenities such as the trails and open space areas, there will be a community swimming pool and bathhouse as well as a large playground and pocket parks throughout the development along that trail system network. As a conclusion, we'll conduct a formal neighborhood meeting. That'll be sometime during the week of April 26th, and we'll send the council notice of that so you can attend if you would so desire. The Plan Commission meeting is anticipated for May 5th. That'll be the public hearing date, after which we'll go back to the drawing board, if you will, and analyze all the comments we receive, and then we'll be back in front of the Plan Commission in all likelihood June, July timeframe, and back in front of the council in a July to August anticipated timeframe. So with that, I'll conclude and be glad to address any questions the council may have, but would ask you this evening to forward the matter on to the Plan Commission for additional consideration. Thank you.
What were the size of the lots? I know you said smaller and bigger, but did you say how?
The lots in Area A, those closer to Casey Road, would be 60 foot wide and 9,100 square foot and plus, and the lots that are on the larger area would be lots that are 70 and 80 foot wide and 11,000 approximately square foot and above.
What are you anticipating, and maybe you said this and I mentioned it, or maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, I'm sorry. What was the average square footage for the home?
The minimum home standards, Mr. Fry, in our ordinance, for those in Area A, the minimum for a one-story dwelling would be 1,800 square feet, and the minimum two-story would be 2,000 square feet. The minimum size in Area B are 2,000 for a ranch and 2,200 square feet for a two-story. And that's exclusive of basement. That's just living space, first floor and above.
Thank you.
Those numbers are significantly above the underlying zoning, but most of the underlying zoning doesn't have as high bar as what you typically see in the residential communities and developments that we have under consideration.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments, councilors? John, I guess thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you at the APC on May 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, ordinance for consideration, ordinance 21-23, Osborne Trails Phase 2 PUD. It's up for council introduction this evening, APC hearing again on May 5th, APC recommendation June 7th, back to us for adoption and consideration on June 14th. John, is this you too?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Just roll to the first slide. Thanks. Good evening again. For the record, John Dobashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner in this matter, Lennar Homes of Indiana. Present tonight is Keith Lash with Lennar, as well as Jim Schooner, an attorney with our office. As noted, the matter before you this evening is the introduction of the Osborne Trails Phase 2. If you could display the next slide, please. The subject real estate is outlined in yellow on this context exhibit that we prepared to help illustrate the different developments and the proximity or context of the real estate. The subject real estate is outlined here in yellow. Along the east perimeter of the real estate is Horton Road, 191st Street located here, a matter you had previously on your agenda with the White Fork Whiskey is located right here. Other areas of Osborne Trail to our south, a single-family attached area yet to be developed, as well as the existing Osborne Trails neighborhood. To our east of and adjacent to Horton Road is sections of Chatham Hills, previously approved, north up to this location. Monon Corner, subdivision plat as part of Chatham Hills zoning, which was previously approved. Caramore, which you had on your agenda, I believe, earlier this evening, is an annexation that was reviewed by the council earlier this year. So all four sides of this development are surrounded by existing approved residential communities that will develop over time. If you could advance the next slide, please. The location of the real estate is further illustrated here. It's zoned AGSF1 today. It's the only parcel within the proximity that is zoned AGSF1. Underlying zoning here is SF4 to the north and to the east, or excuse me, to the north and east, as well as SF4 zoning surrounding in Osborne Trails here, SFA zoning to our south, as well as commercial zoning in this part of Osborne Trails to our south, further removed. Same slide. Lennar has filed the rezone application for Osborne Trails Phase 2 in order to extend and continue the existing Osborne Trails residential community that Lennar currently develops adjacent to the site along 193rd and 6 Points Road. In this regard, the original Osborne Trails PUD district was approved in 2017. It started development last year about this time, has had home construction over the last 12 months. As you may already know, Osborne Trails is an age-restricted 55 and older residential community by ordinance. This ordinance would adopt the same provisions that caters to buyers seeking to combine a social and active lifestyle with one-of-a-kind home designs. Since its opening, homes in Osborne Trails have been selling at a brisk pace, approximately 120 to date, and the community is being embraced by the buying public. If you could advance to the next slide, please. Lennar envisions the addition of 192 homes on the real estate as shown here, serving as an extension and continuation of the existing Osborne Trails community. Access will be from Horton Road and stub streets connecting to Osborne Trails to the west, and Caramore to the north, and a future area of Osborne Trails PUD to the south. So the connecting roadways, this is already a stub street in the development to the north like here. There's a stub already planned and under construction within Osborne Trails here that would connect vehicular over to the amenity facilities. Network of trails that you'll see connecting to the north. There's a trail interface in the neighborhood to the north, a trail interface over here to bring the trail over to Horton Road that would connect there. The concept plan's been designed so that nearly every lot backs up to common area. Common area as proposed is 25%. Further, it should be noted that amenities provided within the existing Osborne Trails were designed to accommodate and absorb the development of the proposed additional lots in the Osborne Trails Phase 2 proposal. The size of the amenity was a 7,000 square foot clubhouse. If you haven't had an opportunity, if you would please contact us. We'll put you in contact and have you take a tour of the amenity facility out there. It's a 10,000 square foot building, high-end finishes, really nice facility that I know Lennar's proud of. They will be having a open house or a grand opening of that facility later this month, and we'll have them send out invitations to council members and administration, if you care to attend that as well. For this reason, the homes and the real estate will be subject to the same covenants and restrictions applicable to the existing Osborne Trails in order to ensure enjoyment and shared maintenance cost of the significant and beneficial Osborne Trails amenities by residents of the community. That Osborne Trails amenity facility, the 10,000 square foot facility, is for the use and enjoyment of those residents within the community. Of course, the walking trails are in public access easements and available to the community at large. Osborne Trails Phase 2 will continue to offer the same 3 product offerings as being built today in Osborne Trails, which is illustrated here by the 3 different color codings on the map. If you would display the next slide, Kevin. These next 2 slides include images of the existing and as well as proposed home product. The home product offerings include various elevations in Osborne Trails were specifically designed for this community and are not being built elsewhere in the central Indianapolis market. Lennar anticipates the average sale prices to be approximately $290,000 for what they are referring to as the Northern Collection, $360,000 for the Central Collection, as well as $415,000 and up for the Southern Collection based on the 3 product offerings. Also important to circle back and note that this community is an age-restricted 55 and older community, no residents under 19. These are folks that pay the full share but don't utilize the school services because of the age restriction in the neighborhood. You could advance the next slide, Kevin. And the next one, please. There we go. As I noted, Osborne Trails includes significant open space with passive and active amenities. 6 lakes are integrated into the community, as well as 3+ miles of walking and bicycle trails and paths that meander throughout the site, not including the proposed additional real estate. So the additional path network here is in addition to the 3+ miles that exist today. The 10,000 square foot state-of-the-art clubhouse shown here includes a workout room, craft room, large indoor gathering space, as well as kitchen and outdoor amenities. These photographs don't do it justice. Please, if you have an opportunity to see what's been built within our community at Osborne Trails, take up Lennar on that offer. The same development amenities, architectural standards, and home product offerings will be provided as exists today in Osborne Trails. And as noted, the same covenants and restrictions will apply to this real estate along with the existing Osborne Trails. With that, I'll conclude, as was the case with the last matter, we will have a neighborhood meeting and invite all those folks around the site, neighbors, to a neighborhood meeting that will occur the week of April 26th, and will be in front of the Planning Commission on May 5th, and then afterwards, as anticipated with the last matter, over the course of the summer, June, July, potentially into August, before we return back to council for adoption consideration. With that, I'll conclude.
Thank you, John. Councilors, questions, comments?
I'll make one quick comment. I did get a chance to take the tour. It's impressive. It felt like I was walking in the Bridgewater Club. It was that well finished, and so I really appreciate what you guys are doing. The community's building out well. It's building out fast, and I can tell you with the wait list that both you guys and the Pulte development, Del Webb, this is in high demand, and I think it's a good use of that space. So appreciate the project.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions? John, thank you. See you at the APC.
Thank you.
Okay. Next ordinance, 21-24 Maple Knoll PUD, Amendment 4. Up for a council introduction tonight, APC hearing on May 5th. APC looking for recommendation right away on May 5th and back for adoption consideration on May 10th. Not sure. John, are you again?
Trifecta. This one's a little simpler, and before I start, I have to offer somewhat of a, not necessarily an apology, but the idea was to measure twice and cut once. As you'll recall, this site was in front of you earlier this year for sign standard adjustments that were approved by the council unanimously. But we're back, and our client is Panda Restaurant Group, as well as the owner, Meyer Stores. And as noted, the matter before you this evening is an introduction of an amendment. And I know the council sees a lot of these, but this amendment, this amendment is similar to those that the council's seen in the past. Kevin, if you would advance. Well, wait a minute. So let's sit here. This is the area of future outlots. So if you're familiar with the site, there's the gas station's getting ready to open in front of Meyer on May 15th, plus or minus, as well as the Meyer store itself, and that sits right where Kevin's putting the dot. This is all the real estate that's east of there. And the UDO has a provision in there that says if you have a dumpster enclosure for trash, you can't locate that in front of the building. Well, Panda, being unique, has 3 frontages, 32, the frontage road, and Spring Mill. And the other outlots will have 2 frontages, one along 32 and one along Spring Mill. So in effect, we're asking that, similar to other developments along State Road 32, that the council has legislated to a mandate to have those located on the frontage road side. So not along State Road 32, but along the frontage road. And Kevin, you could go, if you would please. I need to make that a little smaller. There we go. So this is Panda Restaurant Group site, and it was approved by the Plan Commission as a consent agenda item at their last meeting. This is their building. This is State Road 32. This is Spring Mill Road, where they have frontage on both, and then they also have frontage over here on the frontage road. And it may have been an oversight, and we've discussed it in the past as an oversight relative to other sites along 32. This is the position of the dumpster enclosure. You don't want it up here along 32. You don't want it up here along Spring Mill, and it leaves one last location, that far southwest corner, east corner of the site. Their drive-through's positioned here. So that our ask, if you will, is to allow these dumpster enclosures to be along that south ribbon or perimeter, adjacent to the Meyer parking lot, where less people are going to be interested in aesthetics than those driving along State Road 32, where you're going to see the buildings fronting along State Road 32. And in the event, there's a part B to this. Part A is what I just described. Part B is if the doors to the dumpster enclosure are situated in such a manner they can face a street right-of-way. We don't have an alternative. We've got to face them some direction. You can't get into the situation with them facing east. So the doors would face towards Spring Mill, but that's removed by a couple hundred feet from Spring Mill. And the design of those doors follows your ordinance requirements. It's a enclosure that matches the architecture of the building. The doors are sightly in terms of their design, and they would be positioned in this manner right here. So while this, our client, Panda and Meyer, is the design for that one site, this will ripple across all the other outlots as you get to the gas station on the furthest east plan. So again, we're asking, we've got our second measure now, let's apply this to all the outlots so we're not back in front of the council with each individual outlot user asking, can I locate my dumpster enclosure where I know everybody wants it? Let's just hopefully get it right the second time. In this case, where we were back in front of you earlier for signage. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Oh, one last item. We, procedurally, while we can't guarantee it, we will be in front of the council, the Plan Commission on May 5th. We're going to ask the Plan Commission to suspend its rules and forward this matter back to you that evening if they feel like that's the appropriate action to take. And if they do that, we'll be back in front of the council on May 10th for adoption consideration. But again, that's our request in front of the Plan Commission. Typically, we wait 30 days, but I'm not sure there's enough to chew on for the Plan Commission to consider it over a 30-day period. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, ordinance 21-25, was actually removed by the petitioner as noted earlier. Moving on from there, food truck request for St. Maria Goretti private event, Friday, April 23rd, 3 trucks, Saturday, April 24th, 1 truck. Kevin, do you have anything to add to that?
I do
This
not.
is, all right, this is Pam Howard. I can add a little bit to it. So this is a private event for their parishioners only, will not be open to the public, and I believe it is a movie night that they're requesting these food trucks for, if it makes a difference.
And I'm assuming that any and all COVID-type issues are being dealt with appropriately?
Yes, they've already received their required permits from the health department.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Questions, comments, councilors? Can I have a motion to approve this, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the food truck request by St. Maria Goretti for their private event on Friday, April the 23rd for 3 trucks, and Saturday, April 24th for 1 truck.
Second.
Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy, would you please call the vote?
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcheric,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. That concludes all of our new business. The ordinance 21-21, which was on State Road 32, has been postponed, continued to the next meeting. Just a quick update, Troy and I met with the mayor and his staff to discuss some of the costs for the new State Road 32. We got a partial list of those. Following that meeting and during the meeting, we decided and discussed the suggestion that we meet with the NDOT people. We've arranged to have a meeting with them on Thursday, and we'll be discussing the project with them. And I hope to get back to you with more information on costs and whatnot at our next meeting. Guest, do we have any residents at this time who wish to address the council on items not on the agenda? Let me do so now.
Yep, we have one card at the moment. Sharon Williams.
Hi, I'm Sharon Williams. I was born here on State Road 32, 5 houses east of the Boone County line. My great-grandmother was an American Indian, not Southwest. She was an American Indian. But anyway, my grandmother was midwife? Yeah, that's what she was. She worked for a Westfield doctor at the time. So that was probably in the 1920s. Okay, I've lived here all my life. I have 9 grandchildren that have a 4.0 grade average. They've all got college educations. They are 3 girls, they are accountants. And they have a job with Marathon Oil Company. One of them does. The other is a registered nurse. Like I said, 3 accountants. What else? But anyway, and my son is an electrical engineer. He's worked for Marathon Pipeline 40 years. My other son is an electrical engineer for Boeing. They both just retired 40 years. My brother lives in California. He has a, what is it? One of those things that you get through the government. You know, if you make something and you put it on the thing. And anyway, it was written by the oil company, Shell Oil Company. He's worked there 40 years. So I've got 3 close relatives that had 40-year retirements at the same employment. But he has my brother's name is in the government records as far as I can't think of the term of it. Huh? Patton, yeah, Patton. And his name is Jerry Fosnight. He was, his supervisor wrote it for him, but that was because he had developed a pipe fitting for the oil pipes that would not scald the men working on them. And he found it so good, but Jerry didn't want to put in just his name. He wanted to put in Jerry Fosnight with is it ETAL? Except, you know, with his co-workers. And so it was put in that. Anyway, what I'm here for is to talk about sewage. Okay, now I really got into this poop district. Okay, so I found out where a lot of the lift stations are. Now, the lift stations are a polite way of saying lift poop. Okay, so the lift poop from here to yonder. One is right in the back of my house. I live right next to Crew Car Wash, and on the other side of me is Burger King. Now, the way I figure economics in the state of Indiana and all over the world is we wouldn't have any tax money to spend at all if it wasn't for the restaurants selling hamburgers. Okay, but when you have all these buildings and these homes, we have to have a place to flush it. Okay, so we flush it here and we flush it there. And on the back of my property is runs into Cool Creek in the city of Carmel. Now, on the east side of Westfield is a road called Gray Road. Well, if you take Gray Road, and I've got a picture of it to show you exactly what I'm talking about and how important it is. Now, the mayor of Flint, Michigan got fined by the federal government $162 million because he wasn't keeping his water clean. And that's the only reason I'm here, because I want to remind you guys that when you're voting on this or that, or you're expanding and you're building and all this, that you got to have places to flush it, okay? And if you don't, you're going to make all these people sick, because at Gray Road and 116th Street, there was poop being flushed over the flowing well, and Hamilton County did not take care of that. Now, a lot of people in Hamilton County got, what's that called, that liver disease, hepatitis, because of that very factor. Now, nobody seems to care about anybody until they get ready to die. Now, I ought to know this because I have went to the Riverview Hospital and had my leg operated on, and I got blood poisoning twice. Not once, but twice. Now, the only reason they really treated me was because I told them that I was going to get in my little wheelchair, I was going to go downstairs, and I was going to get... Now, this was right after I was operated on. I knew I had blood poisoning in my left leg. Okay, I told the surgeon, I said, I'm going to go to Cincinnati Hospital. Oh, no, you can't do that. I laid in that so I went along with him, but that didn't mean I was going to stay. So I stayed there for 3 weeks, and they did cure it. They put me on clindamycin. So if you want anything for blood poisoning, that's what to get, clindamycin. Now, this is what you get in Hamilton County. I can tell you all what you get in Hamilton County. Now, Westfield sewer goes to 151st Street and River Road, and then it goes directly into White River. Carmel's goes into White River. All this poop is flushed there. Now, the city of Noblesville's poop is flushed on 5th Street and just south of State Road 32. Now, that's where they flush all the poop and the blood and the guts. Okay, you want to know why people are sick and why people have to have insurance? That's why. You're going to die. Most men die anymore at age 52 because they get sick and they get hepatitis because of all of these factors. I just wanted you guys to know where you live. The other thing I wanted to tell you was this. I've lived between, and the city of Westfield tried to steal my property, and I wrote to the United States Department of Justice Consumer Protection Agency. They did it 2 or 3 times. I sent them checks to verify that fact that the property tax woman sent me to attach and steal my property. But I just want you to really know what's going on in Westfield and in Hamilton County. Now, they did not take it because they couldn't. You can't just go around stealing people's property. Hamilton County did it first by, what was it they did? Eminent domain. They're going to take my property. Okay. That really ticked me off because you just can't go around doing that. So they didn't. They sent me the checks, and I sent copies of that to the United States Department of Justice Consumer Protection Agency, and they didn't take my property. Then they came in the back way, and they're going to take my property there, right behind Crew Car Wash. Okay. They also flooded my property in the back of my property, because that's the back of my property they wanted. So they went with a lawyer and my neighbor across the street in a contract that they sent me. The DNR sent me a contract and said that I had to answer, so I was forced to answer. So I answered DNR with a certified letter and sent them copies of that. And then I,
Sharon?
what?
Sharon?
Am I through?
Are you here?
Yeah.
Sounds like you've had quite a time.
Theft,
No,
yeah, just
for sure.
theft in Hamilton County.
I
I just want you to know what you guys are doing and what you're voting on. Flush.
I appreciate it, the council appreciates it.
I want to give you these pictures too.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted you to know is this. I can't sell my property in Hamilton County because on one of the realtors, they had a clause in there, and I happened to read it. See, I used to type for the Army, okay? But in that, this real estate sales thing, it said that they could put that I had to pay their lawyers. And no way in hell am I gonna pay a real estate lawyers. If he can't sell his cotton picking property, it's not my fault. Here's a picture, I want this for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is the flood. This was the flood at 116th and Cool Creek. Cool Creek. Cool Creek goes right behind me, and that's where all the poop's flushed. I just want to make sure you guys know what you're doing. That's
Sure.
all.
Thank you,
Thank
Sharon.
you.
We will
Thank
look
you.
into it.
We do have a second card, Marla Ayler.
Harlan.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council tonight. As elected officials, I wanted you to be aware that you are public administrators, whether you know much about the science of it or not. Public administrators share an important role in ensuring that laws and regulations, civil rights, municipal budgets, and health and safety codes are enforced to protect the community that they serve. It is within your purview to research, plan, and recommend policies and programs that fall within budgets, and do so by following administrative and government law. You must coordinate with others to adopt policies and put new ones into action. You should manage and evaluate programs and policies to determine their effectiveness through open communication using qualitative and quantitative data, including public records, budget reports, surveys, and historical data. And with that, you must ensure that all of your constituents are treated fairly and equitably. However, that can be challenging, particularly among the rise in social media and its effect on communications. The perception of corruption in government and a lack of diversity in citizen participation and implicit biases that make your jobs prohibitive in some cases. But it is critically important for you to seek innovative solutions in an era of increasing and changing populations. Excuse me. In August and September of 2016, and again just 12 days ago, the Westfield Preservation Alliance circulated 2 petitions focused on the following points relative to Westfield's historic downtown district: funding mechanisms, taxpayer-funded parking, timeline burdens, tall buildings that would obscure the Grand Junction Plaza, multifamily housing that would lead to increased traffic on State Road 32, funding infrastructure improvements, changing the character of the area, creating traffic patterns that would compromise safety and accessibility, and finally, the most recent petition focused solely on the destruction of historic properties on the south side of State Road 32. The 2 petitions combined as of tonight have received more than 600 signatures. I can't be sure tonight how many are uniquely different, but I can say that all these topics matter to people in this community and beyond. 600 times people have cared enough to act by signing these petitions, and I couldn't begin to count the number of recent conversations on social media. But no one's opinion should ever be dismissed simply because they didn't write you directly. Your constituency is engaged and desires to be informed by you. For those of you who know me well, you know that I love the study of public administration and that I have loved the Strong Towns movement ever since I read Chuck Marone's book in 2019. Strong Towns advocates for enduring prosperity that cannot be artificially created from the outside, but must be built from within the city. Incrementally, over time, and for a model of development that allows places to grow financially strong and resilient. The Strong Towns approach also emphasizes obtaining a higher return on existing infrastructure investments. In contrast, they point out that America's current approach to growth emphasizes investment in new infrastructure to induce new development using public dollars inefficiently and destructively, subsidizing one type of development over another, leaving massive maintenance liabilities to future generations. Finally, they close their About page on Facebook by saying we can no longer simply disregard old investments in favor of new, but instead we need to focus on making better use of that which we are already committed to publicly maintaining. Think about that in reference to past and future projects in Westfield. What's been done well and what hasn't. Finished on budget and not finished on budget. What you can learn from and how to evaluate programs and decisions for their effectiveness and efficiency. This is, after all, the role of a public administrator. Our city has become a tourist destination for amateur travel sports and upcoming agritourism, yet I find little to no information that has seriously considered capitalizing on Westfield's cultural heritage and some of those old investments Strong Towns mentions. For your consideration, heritage tourism is focused on the cultural heritage of where tourism is taking place and is considered one of the fastest growing segments in the industry and equates to $171 billion annual spend. 81% of US tourists are considered cultural tourists, and 56% of the US population indicated it included at least one cultural, historic, or heritage activity or event while on a trip. Cultural tourists spend 60% more compared to the traditional domestic leisure traveler. 41% are well-educated baby boomers that tend to engage with locals through immersive experiences, seeking to enrich their lives and prefer leisure travel that is educational. Millennials are a growth market for heritage tourism, and 73% want to engage in a destination's cultural assets, and 2/3 of them rated authenticity as extremely important in their travel decisions. Sustainability is a continued trend in heritage tourism, and it is imperative to preserve and protect the resources that might attract tourists while maintaining community pride for residents. Westfield's future and its finances are at a proverbial precipice, relying on a vision that may have seemed good 14 years ago, but is now outdated. Last week, the United States Department of Transportation told Texas DOT to stop building a highway project in Houston. To stop. It's unprecedented that that's ever happened. While the situations aren't the same, a news article stated that the national landscape of freeway fights is shifting, and immediate action is being taken to address certain environmental issues when it comes to building roads. A little more than 2 weeks ago, Smart Growth America released its Dangerous by Design 2021 report about the epidemic of preventable pedestrian deaths on roads designed for speed over safety. Over the past decade, the number of people struck and killed by drivers nationwide while walking increased by an astonishing 45%. According to the report, we urgently need to change the way we design and build roads to prioritize safety, not speed as we currently do. We must recognize the obsession with keeping traffic moving and avoiding delay at all costs in hopes of saving drivers mere minutes is what creates the very dangers highlighted in the report. Yesterday, I read a report from Strong Towns about naive intervention, which can be described as the mindset that the existence of a problem demands that those with strength or power do something. And the mere fact of doing something is always preferable to doing nothing. Non-naive intervention, however, is different. We don't reject the possibility that we can and should do something, but rather we evaluate what we should do with the humility appropriate for one who understands that we are going to get things wrong. And I think it was great you said it earlier. We are going to unleash unintended consequences, and we should only intervene when we have a good handle on downside risks and that they are limited in comparison to the upside potential. From history to finance, culture, and safety, this council faces a number of decisions that require your non-naive intervention. And I hope the information I've presented tonight is worthy of your consideration in the near future as you put the science of public administration into practice in Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a third card, Jennifer Beck.
Thank you. For the record, Jennifer Beck with NDOT. I apologize. I acknowledge that the topic of State Road 32 is to be continued for the next few weeks. I believe the intent of that was for a meeting that we were going to be having later this week to talk details. I wanted to come and be available tonight to answer any questions directly. I know there have been a lot of statements. Social media is a great point, and also on news articles of NDOT's stance and NDOT's thoughts on canceling an agreement that we have in place on State Road 32. So again, I just want to be available to publicly answer any questions. Anything that we could continue in detail to talk about Thursday is fine as well, but I will be who you will be meeting with, and so I'm here now as well if there's anything you'd like to bring for me to answer. If not, then I will at least like to address the specific repercussions of canceling an existing agreement with us. Again, as I have seen misquoted a few stances that we would have. So first of all, as the agreement states specifically, a termination clause has repayment back to NDOT for all expenses that we've incurred to date on the project, which is about $450,000 to date. The next set of incidents that happen if this agreement is canceled are not directly part of the agreement, but just the ripple effect. So we have currently an added travel lanes project that we have worked very hard to fund on State Road 32 further to the east in Noblesville. We've invested $35 million, and that's to be in fiscal year 25 and 26. And the justification for that is dependent on the added travel lanes through town. I do want to acknowledge everything that Marla just said as far as what you guys have to think about as a whole for the improvements through downtown. But I also want to emphasize, as a state asset, we have a responsibility to regional traffic and to statewide traffic to maintain a level of service that's acceptable to not only us, but to Federal Highway as a national truck route that State Road 32 carries. So if that State Road 32 project that we just funded is at risk of being canceled if the downtown project does not occur, because now we have a cost-benefit analysis that has to be revisited with a bottleneck still existing at the downtown location. So that $35 million investment that was going to serve not just Westfield, but Noblesville and Hamilton County as a whole is now at risk of being canceled. We also have the third factor of the asset condition of State Road 32 as it stands today. It was scheduled to be resurfaced back in 2019. However, we postponed that based on the contract that we had in place for this added travel lanes project. So the existing pavement is already past its existing life, and we have no mechanism to fund anything until the earliest possible date of 2027. And this is a fact I wanted to make a point of because it gets misquoted. We are a 5-year funded agency as far as where every dollar is spent for the next 5 years. So the next opportunity for us to even entertain another project in this area is that year. That is not a guarantee that that is the year anything will happen. But that's just the first opportunity that we would have. In reality, when NDOT puts in projects, I will not bore you with the explanation of how we fund internally our projects, but how that works, it usually takes a few years for us to get something funded because we compete with the statewide need, obviously not just Hamilton County by any means. And then finally, obviously terminating an existing agreement when we've invested so much time and energy that could have been put elsewhere on a project that would have been delivered is something that's not recoupable, but it will be something that we have to consider moving forward with interlocal agreements. Again, not just for Westfield, but as a state as a whole. We engage with partnerships. This isn't unique to Westfield. This isn't something that we've only done with you guys. I work in Greenfield District, so I have had partnerships with pretty much every entity in Hamilton County, as well as Pendleton, Fortville, Union City, many communities, so this isn't new. But this definitely brings into question the risk that we are exposed to if something can get canceled this far down the line for no fault of NDOT or the project development process. So that's another effect that you should consider when thinking about how you want to move forward on that proposal. Did that spur any questions from anybody by any means?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's the cost of the East Street expansion since we're gonna do the roundabout down through the city?
East Street expansion.
Yeah,
To the north,
no, it's to the south.
Jersey Street?
The roundabout, East Street down. What is the estimated cost of that approximately?
I'm related to State Road 32 in the roundabout at East Street.
Yeah, no, it's part of the 32 expansion.
Clarity.
Yeah, so the Jersey Street Extension Project, the one that goes from Union
Yeah.
over, it's not part of the 32 project.
It actually runs into 32 though.
It ties into it, but they're
Right.
two separate projects, right? This one,
So I can clarify on that too.
Yeah.
So those are two independent purpose and needs. We can build that roundabout at 32 and East Street and not have a south leg. So from my perspective, it's irrelevant about that project happening or not.
Okay, maybe it's irrelevant. And I'm not trying to.
You're fine. We did the traffic
But-
analysis without it because it's not part of what our purpose
I'm
and
glad
need
you
is.
came. I wish we'd have known you were coming. It would have been beautiful. That way we could have all probably put together questions. I mean, and I'm not trying to direct this to you personally.
No, nobody asked me to come. I just keep hearing statements about NDOT and just thought I should be present. I live in Westfield as well, so it's convenient.
We appreciate
Yeah, it's
you being
great.
here.
NDOT, I don't think was mentioned except for that we were tabling until next time, so I'm not sure how that came about. Jennifer, so what is the average increase in cost over the last 2 years for other NDOT projects?
We are seeing an overall increase, and actually, we just got notification this weekend of a new report out from the construction industry that the cost index as a whole is going up, obviously because of COVID and resource availability. Actually, one comment I meant to make and completely missed, which is the positive comment in this that I wanted to clarify. NDOT's intent with these agreements, again, this isn't the first one we've ever done, but our not to exceed limit is the intent of not paying for local amenities. Because when we go into partnerships, the point of that is so that local amenities can be incorporated. And obviously, we don't participate in that, it's the partnership. We are committed to delivering the State Road 32 project, local amenities aside, at a 50-50 rate. So if we go to letting and the bids come in higher than our estimate because of a lot of these industry factors, we are committing to 50% of the cost of that project. So
Up
at the
to
time
$7.5 million?
over that, again, if it's for cost related to State Road 32 as an asset and not the local, if it was, the lighting, decorative lighting for some reason was super high, obviously we wouldn't participate in that cost, but the
Utility
majority of the
location.
cost.
What about utility location?
Utility relocations,
Yes.
I don't think we've identified reimbursables. I think the reimbursable to Barry
Without-
Duke is a sorry, did I
You
not
say
hear?
no?
The utility relocations, I don't believe you've identified a reimbursable. Duke being buried is a local amenity that we would not participate in.
I thought
Because
that-
that's not a
I
requirement.
thought, Jeremy, in the thing that you guys showed Mike and I, that the part of the 15.8 million was the burying of the.
that is correct. And as we've stated then, and Jennifer will support, that's because we are contributing to the project. If we are not contributing to the project, NDOT moves it back to the back of the
Gotcha.
right of way, everything stays overhead.
Okay. And just to clarify, I'm asking these questions again.
Yes.
I love the fact that we were given advance notice of this. This is fantastic.
Please, this is nobody's
but-
fault. I don't want that
No, I
to be a
appreciate that.
point.
Because, and actually, just to be fair to everybody, I'm actually for the, I don't really care about the expansion. In fact, I think I'm not really for or against it. I can see 2 lanes or 4 lanes. I don't really care. What I do care about is that we know the cost. So, for instance, I look at construction indices all the time. So the construction index from 2018 to 2021 is what?
I don't have the financial numbers to quote to you right now.
Okay, so let's say that construction index went from 100 to 147, and instead of 15 million, this project is 25 million. And forget all the amenities. Are you picking up 12 and a half and we're picking up 12 and a half?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say that 15 million to 25 million is a bit absurd of an example, but to the point of, are we participating in anything over if it's the actual cost of the project? That is correct.
Okay.
And I understand that this is not written in that agreement, and so I understand this is new information. Obviously, in light of this agreement being canceled, we want to make that clear that our intent is to deliver this project, and we're willing to commit to that, because that's how we have processed all of the interlocal agreements that we have done to date. The not to exceed is to protect us as state taxpayers from paying for local amenities that we should not be paying for.
Yeah.
But we fully support the project and will pay for the 50% cost of that project at the time of letting.
Okay, and I appreciate you being here, and again, like I've said, even though I'm absurd, I'm not,
The numbers make a point, but that's a.
But, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, obviously, but,
Please
you know,
do.
from 2018 to 2023, or when this is completed, what's been the typical estimate of increases over the last 5 years for projects like this for NDOT then?
So can I? So the estimates that we gave you are provided obviously by the engineer, and Structure Point builds projects all over the road or over the country. They're using data from recently bid projects to generate these cost estimates. We can provide you the index increase or whatever you're asking for on Thursday when we meet again.
Okay.
Which we can talk about this stuff again. Jennifer will be there as well as Clark, the Greenfield Commissioner. But we, staff, me, Jeremy, is not putting these numbers together. There's a whole pool of data information that comes together that is what is generating the estimate.
Yeah.
So to Jennifer's point, which I just found out, they would contribute more. I didn't know that, which is
Yeah.
that's good. If right-of-way, for example, comes in high, then, and that drives up the cost of the project, then NDOT continues to contribute more. Things like our trees that we want, and the grass buffers.
Those are
and
on us.
The utilities going under, that's the reason why we are contributing into this project.
Yeah.
So that we can get something that we're proud of in our downtown.
Yeah, so one of the things maybe to come with on Thursday, since we're all talking about it now, if that's okay, I mean, is that, one of the, again, even though there's plenty of people who say I'm against this 32 expansion, which I've even told Mike and everyone at the meeting on Monday that I'm actually not against it. Even, you know, which causes some of the concern for the people that probably even support me, but I want to know what the costs are. The East Street expansion, I get it, it's not part of this project, I want to know the overall picture.
Jersey Street, we'll bring that to you. We have it available too. What you specifically asked for was 32. We'll bring Jersey Street as well.
Yeah.
Again, there's no bridge or tunnel associated with the project. But if we're talking State Road 32, which is an NDOT project, Jersey Street Extension, which is City of Westfield locally funded
Yeah.
project, we absolutely have all that data. We'll
Yeah.
bring it to you.
That's great,
as
because
well.
just for the record, I think in Monday's meeting, I think I said 30 million, and I think Todd Bertrand's comment was, well, why not 100 million? And I was kind of scoffed at. And I said, well, it'd be just nice to know the costs.
And the reality is, the numbers that we're providing you is the best estimate, best guess that we have at this point in time, based on where the drawings are, based on what we know from the construction market across the nation, plus there's escalation and things in there for construction in '23.
And that's fair. And Jeremy, actually, I think you do a good job, right? I mean, I know I give you a ton of grief, but I think you do a good job. We don't have a good propensity to stay on budget with our projects here, and I want to know what that number is. And it doesn't have to be exact. It can be a roundabout number.
And I feel like that's an unfair statement. So Grand Junction Plaza, I stood up here with you plenty of times. We don't build parks like that. Nobody builds parks like that on a regular basis. We build roads all the time. Our projects, generally speaking, come in under budget. Our East Street project that's under construction right now came in $900,000 under budget. State Road 32 was $500,000 under budget, and then we were able to add the lighting back in thanks to NDOT.
Monon Bridge.
Yeah. And then Westfield Boulevard connector was $400 and some thousand under budget. So to say that we don't come in at or under budget on a regular basis is, I think that's unfair.
Okay.
There's
Fair
a
enough.
glistening
With-
example.
Maybe
but for
with Grand Junction, Grand Park, some of those things, maybe we haven't done a decent job. So anyways, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Young lady, do you know when this road was built? 32 was constructed?
Originally?
Yeah, what year was?
I
The
couldn't quote
concrete
that to
was-
you off the top
I
of my
do.
head.
I'm old enough to remember.
Okay.
1956.
Sounds right, based on
It's
pavement.
been a long time since that's been done, and I think we ought to do it right or not do it at all. Period.
We agree.
Couldn't agree more.
Mrs. Beck, since you're here,
Yes.
so here's the question that I would like to know. If we did not do this, what would happen? So we've heard various accounts for what NDOT would do, the state force in our hand. You know, what
Yep.
32 looks like west of 31. So I would like to hear from you, if that's okay, since you happen to
I
be
appreciate
here.
that. By all means, I
If
realize I
we
showed
pull
up to be
out,
put on the
what
spot.
happens?
Yes, so first of all,
And
our
when?
priority would be to address the pavement condition. So as I mentioned, it was already past due for a resurface. So our initial approach would be to resurface the pavement of this road. By the time we would actually get to it, it might be a 4-inch overlay as opposed to 2-inch, but the condition of the pavement would be our priority. Mobility projects for added capacity are much more difficult for NDOT to fund because you're competing with funds for interstates. So we would not pursue that right away. It's not included, obviously, the 35 million that we have identified for everything to the east. Obviously, this piece is a more expensive piece, being that it's through downtown Westfield, the real estate's expensive, everything. The cost benefit for us for that piece would likely not be on our radar in the next 10 years. So if this project gets dropped, that we likely will not look at capacity, we will look at just pavement management at that point. We'll continue to evaluate the needs of mobility on a statewide perspective, but again, it's a tough act to compete from the state perspective. And the fact that we got the 32 ATL to Noblesville, this project was a key factor for us to be able to fund that. Because again, the cost benefit numbers as it shakes out was very, very helpful for us to make that connection for the region as a whole. So it takes all of that added travel lanes into jeopardy, and I could not tell you when we would address that need. But the condition of the pavement, earliest would be 2027. No guarantee of 27, that's the earliest possible opportunity.
I got a question, follow-up to that, to Jake's question. So if we're looking at 10 years, have we done traffic studies around the
Correct.
growth in Hamilton County? And we're already rated F in our downtown area, which means it's really congested. If we wait 10 years, what's that going to do to our downtown, just in the congestion that we're already seeing?
Well, it's only, obviously it's only gonna get worse, and as I sat here and watched all these neighborhood developments get approved, I just kept thinking to myself, the growth rate. We applied a 1% growth as an annual increase we designed for a 20-year design life, so we looked at 20 years out from when it's open to traffic, so 2043 or 2042 was the design year. So the no-build condition, the analysis would go in the weeds of this, but obviously it's going to continue to fail. It's going to start impacting the interchange at 31 and 32, which is going to cause us to have to reevaluate things that we can do there to fix it. We'd have to see that impact before we would be able to do anything for it, but traffic's only going to get worse. We have 5 years to design a project. We're already always behind the game on it. Especially when we talk about state roads capacity, we are way behind because again, priority is always on the interstates. And we have ambitious goals to add travel lanes all on 70 through the state and all on 65 through the state. So again, to compete for those funds for State Road 32 in Hamilton County is going to be difficult. But the need's just going to continue to grow. And as you said, we've already seen level of service F. It's going to stay that way.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Jennifer, if I may, first of all, I think I heard you say that you're a Westfield resident?
Yes.
And you just showed up on your own accord tonight?
Yes.
Thank you. That's pretty bold and pretty brave. I appreciate that.
She's also the project manager for State.
Well, yeah, and so I'm involved in this.
I understand.
This
However, showing up and
Yes.
sitting through 2 hours and 40 minutes to be bombarded with questions is pretty bold and pretty brave.
It's
So
my
I
first
appreciate
council
that.
meeting. It's
So
entertaining.
I want to say thank you
Probably
for
the
that.
last, probably even Christmas, right?
So, however, I do have a couple questions, and I just want
Yes.
some clarity if that's possible. To the question that you answered earlier, as far as what and when. So if we were to stop this process, I understand the financial repercussions and things of that nature. Am I clear in understanding that 2027 is when we would probably be able to get that repaved and not before?
Potentially, I would
Okay.
use, not probably sounds a little more sure.
Okay,
Potentially is-
possibly as early
is a
as
good word.
2027, but not before.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, not before.
And then as far as, there's also some commentary going around that says, if we do not do this, NDOT's gonna come in, they're gonna have their way with downtown Westfield, and they're gonna just do whatever they wanna do, have their way with it, and we have no say-so. You alluded to the fact, or you stated clearly that nothing, you've got other things on your agenda. Nothing like that's gonna happen for at least 10 years. And I can jump to the conclusion, I guess, that somewhere in that 10-year time frame, we'd probably come up with another solution that was maybe a little bit more viable, if that was the direction we went. And is my thinking completely wrong there?
It's not completely wrong, and I will be clear, the statements that NDOT would do, the need would be there. So it's not that it would be off our radar, it's that it would be difficult to stack against the other needs. So it wouldn't be something that we're not thinking about or trying to fund or trying to come up with solutions for by any means.
Right.
But it is true that we cannot pay for things that we can't pay for every community in the state. So
Sure.
as far as amenities, is it gonna look like it does to the west? I don't know. With design criteria change, things change over the years. So until we get to that point of actually laying something out, again, if we had an agreement canceled, we would be very hesitant to engage in another interlocal
Understand.
again, and would probably pursue our own process with our own funds without that challenge along the way.
Completely understand. I appreciate that clarification. My terminology, not anyone else's. To think, if we can put the taxpayers of Westfield at ease to some degree, if this project is stopped, the taxpayers don't have to worry that, and again, my terminology, not anyone else's, NDOT's not gonna come in out of spite and tear things down and put a 4-lane through there the way that they want it.
We don't do anything out of spite, we do it out of need and data.
Thank you. Okay. One other question, if I can. You had mentioned, and this was good news, as you prefaced it, that that 15 million 50-50 split is not a hard cap.
Correct.
We talked about what is that upward, what does that look like? How far does that go? Is there, and again, I'm not asking you to guess what those upper limits are, what those estimates will come in at, but is there an upper limit to that?
So, and this is something we can talk more about with Clark on Thursday in the details, but the point of that is the 15 million, our estimates are fairly accurate that we have working on today. So when we talk about an increase, we don't expect anything that drastic. From the 15 to 25 is a big jump. We've seen those types of increases, but that's when there's a different scope or a big scope change.
Sure.
Examples on State Road 37 and Fishers, different scope from what was initially budgeted from what was built, and way more complex.
Sure.
This is pretty cut and dry. There's no major scope surprises that could come up and change. So don't expect anything that significant. But again, our intent is to build the scope. So as long as there's no local component added that unknown to our knowledge, like a pedestrian bridge, not required to be done by the agreement by any means, but if that was to be added in, obviously we wouldn't participate in anything like that. But to add the travel lanes on State Road 32, whatever that cost is when it goes to letting, assuming it's awardable per NDOT contract law, which means it has to be within 15% of the budget. So I guess if you put 15% of the estimate, so whatever our final estimate is plus 15%, that's the max we could do.
Okay.
Can't give you that exact number since we're not at that level of design, but we could do it based on an estimate, which again,
But there is no
talk through
upward-
those numbers.
Perfect. There's no upward limit to what that estimate could
Whatever's
come in at that you're
awardable.
gonna say we're splitting it.
Correct.
Perfect. I appreciate that clarification.
I just one more question.
Yes.
Are we getting an updated agreement then? I mean, because
So if you want to put that in writing, again, business decision to discuss and negotiate with Clark. We normally do not do that because, again, so much can happen during design, what local components can factor in throughout development. We don't want to be doing amendments every couple months just because some little thing tweaks. We prefer to see what the low bid comes in at and engage in that conversation at that time.
okay.
So I completely understand that the preference would be to have that in writing. But based on experiences we've had with local agreements in the past, this is how we structure our agreements with a not to exceed to protect NDOT. And as we get to letting, if we realize the costs are due to the scope of the project, We can provide in writing in an email or whatever format from Clark, but we prefer not to amend legal agreements to address that, because it's hard to capture specifically.
But that's kind of what's happened in Fishers, right? So Mark Airbrandt's even gone back and said, hey, I mean, you guys had us update this, or we updated this, and so he's trying to go back to the state, right, to try to get.
Well, that's an entirely different scenario, and I will definitely not have that conversation here.
Okay,
But completely different.
okay. But it's pretty easy to get it updated in writing, though.
We can definitely put something in some form of writing for you.
Okay.
But what Jennifer's stating, though, is that would happen at the time that we have all the information. So we would go through, at letting, right? So we'd understand the cost then, and then we would amend it.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it now and then doing it again and then doing it again, we get through the process. If it comes in over budget, then we would have the conversation at that time.
Okay.
Now, you'll have the opportunity to talk to Clark on Thursday. If he's willing to do something, obviously that is completely up to him as the district commissioner, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mark Packer is her boss. He is the assistant commissioner at Greenfield.
Just a question, I'm sorry, because this meeting's going on like 8 hours now, I know. So how far away do they bring in millings for asphalt for projects like this? I mean, is that up to whoever does the actual project?
What would we be using the millings for? Are you talking about when we mill and haul it off?
And whoever's using it to bring it in, where are they pulling from? Are they just pulling from here locally?
You mean the asphalt?
The asphalt
Yeah.
blend, the
Yeah.
mix? Yeah, it'll be part of the contractor award, but yeah, they're all produced locally. They can't afford to truck them, plus asphalt needs to stay hot, right?
Okay. I just wondered how far they go. I've got 10 acres of it, about
Usually-
300 feet high. Be happy to,
Oh, are you saying to get rid of the millings?
yes.
You can do that. You can work with some local asphalt companies.
Got-
They
I own a
use it
gravel pit.
as wrap.
I'm just happy to get rid of a bunch of them. So,
I have one quick question. We keep talking about this meeting on Thursday. It's the first I've heard of it. Is this open to all city councilors? Is this a public meeting? Can somebody explain?
It has not been planned as a public meeting. It was the product of our meeting with Counselor Johns and Counselor Patton about the cost. I would assume that 3 of you can come. If we get beyond that, then we would have to start talking public notice and things.
That's fine. I wasn't just curious. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that was the intent of being here, so that I could talk to anyone and everyone that had questions, and I plan to be at meetings that this topic is discussed to be able to do so that NDOT's represented at these conversations.
I appreciate it.
One more quick question, if I may. There were multiple renderings, right? There were multiple options that were up for discussion. Everything that we've discussed here applies to whatever design the city of Westfield determines. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We have to still finish the environmental process to determine the final version of the product that we produce out of the development process. So
So it's not as if anyone is married necessarily to the project at hand, but just everything that let me say that differently, the rendering that is the current top of the list. But if something else was decided upon, everything we've talked about here would apply to that just the same.
So the expansion to the south is the preferred alignment, which is under review by the Historic Review Board, which there's a meeting on Wednesday here in this building, which you all are welcome to come to. That will provide input. If they, what do you call the issuance? The
certificate of approval,
Yeah, so
COA.
if the board doesn't approve the COA, then we would have to be forced to look at other alternatives, which I believe there were 8 to begin with, 5, and then it expanded. None of which are viable from a constructability perspective, in my opinion, from a cost perspective as well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification as well.
Jennifer, one quick question. If we did not do the project, would there be an issue with us doing a curb cut to put a new Jersey Street connecting to 232?
It would go through the permit process for NDOT. So if there was no existing project, you'd have to submit a permit to tie into a state route and do traffic analysis and all that stuff
Would
to
you see that as an
justify
issue?
that. To submit a permit for a drive,
It
no.
would be a 4-way or a 2-way one-way stop. so-
Yeah, we'd have to evaluate for what type of treatment you need at that intersection that would be appropriate. We obviously would not participate in the cost of that, but could you submit a permit for a request? Absolutely.
And again, going back to the statement or the point that I made earlier, regardless of the outcome here, obviously there would be some, ramifications if things were stopped. But NDOT's not gonna do anything out of spite. It's not,
Correct.
you don't have the bandwidth to operate that way. So
We have
regardless of
plenty
what,
of need throughout the state.
regardless of what social media says, that's just not the case, right?
That is absolutely not the case. and
Excellent.
it's
Thanks for
hard
that
to read.
clarification again.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you, guys.
Kevin? Any more? Okay, it's late.
Thank you again very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is city council comments. First of all, let me call on, I know Cindy, you've got some comments on the APC meeting, right?
I do. Seems anticlimactic after that. And I got an echo, sorry. We have the consent agenda. This call from the meeting on the 5th. So we had detailed development plans for the Menards expansion. We had the detailed development plan Panda Express at 32 and Spring Mill. We had the recommendation that we heard tonight for Lantern Commons. We had 9 public hearings, and for the PUDs, it was for the Bridgewater Amendment for the culverts, the Harmony Amendment for signage, North Point Amendment for architectural standards, the Bonterra PUD, which is south side of 32 west of Grid, Sycamore Glen, which is 159th in town, and the Davis Amendment for architectural standards. And for development plan public hearing, we have the Courtyards of Westfield, which is the southwest corner of town, 151st, that's 89 lots. West Fork Whiskey, and the plat amendment for North Point. So that was it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Councilors, Finance Committee meeting, anything?
Nothing worth talking about.
Oversight Committee? Right?
It's just, we're working on getting the audits set up.
Anything else? Mayor Cook?
Let's go home.
That works for me, thank you. And adjourn the meeting? Meeting adjourned.